Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast, Thursday edition of the Rodcast. A lot to get into on the show today. Of course, we will review the NBA playoff games last night. Of course, there are lots of drama involved in that game. Knicks now up 2-0 in that series, and we'll break it down and talk about it. We'll review that. Also, Nikola Jokic wins his third MVP. We'll talk about what that means for his legacy overall in the NBA, and it was not really a lot of drama involved with that. Another kind of impressive MVP campaign for Jokic. We'll talk about that and break it down. Also, we'll hear from Stephen Jones. I know Cowboys fans are probably tired of hearing from Stephen Jones. They probably want more action than talk from Stephen Jones at this point. But where's Stephen Jones' next segment talking about why the Cowboys have overlooked the running back position, it would seem, this offseason, why they haven't done enough to address it. They did bring in Zeke, but a lot of Cowboys fans felt they could have done more. He'll talk about that. He also talks about Dak Prescott and their right now the contract negotiations. We'll get into that too a little bit later on. We'll also talk Longhorn football, go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment. There are a lot of Longhorns that are at least listed right now as some of the steals in the NFL draft, this past NFL draft. So we'll talk about the guys who are looked at as steals, great value pickups and acquisitions in the NFL draft. We'll get to that Raj rant of the day. There is some buzz going on in college football right now. Chip Kelly had something to say about the NIL culture. There's some other coaches who are spoken out about the NIL culture. We'll talk about there. Everybody's got a different method. Everybody's got a different culture on their campus as it relates to how they want to deal with NIL. And we'll talk about Texas. We'll talk about LSU. Apparently, there's some waves being made, a lot of controversy and conversation going on about some of Brian Kelly's comments. Excuse me. We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on in the show. When we get to Rod's rant of the day. Got a lot to cover, so let's not waste any time. Without further ado, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He is the real MVP, one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. I'm not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. There ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. My friend, co-host, and neighbor is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It is a Thursday morning. That means we're getting ready for the weekend, starting to gear up for it.
Sir.
Enjoyed a pretty good basketball game last night. It was fun to watch a little basketball, the little drama happening last night. So that was fun to watch. Enjoyed that. But let me introduce you my co-host. He is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Appreciate that intro as always, brother. And yeah, a lot of drama in that game last night between the Knicks and the Pacers. So we'll get to it. I want to talk about that. We'll also get to Jokic winning his third MVP. We got to talk legacy with Jokic now and what that means to win your third MVP. Puts him in rarefied air. My man Patrick will get you to the Horn headlines. I'm sure he'll address it there a little bit, and then we'll talk about it in this segment. Also, we got your big fat poll today, usual favorites. Big fat poll today coming up 6:45. We got what the stats coming up 7:45. We got off the record. Who said that coming up a little bit later on in the show. So your usual favorites with Jam Pack. We'll learn what the musically themed day of the week is a little bit later on too. So we got a lot to talk about. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it because I want to talk about this game last night and Knicks fans once again getting their money's worth when it comes to this Knicks team because they're winning in thrilling fashion. They're still winning, so that's all that matters. They're doing it in dramatic fashion. So we'll get to that. But first, my man Patrick's going to update us, educate us, and inform us with the top headlines of the day with the Horn headlines.
Your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Number one ranked Texas softball begins their postseason with a matchup against Texas Tech in the second round of the Big 12 tournament today. Texas beat the Red Raiders by run rule in all three of the final games of the regular season. After winning their first regular season conference title since 2010, the Longhorns are now seeking their first sweep of Big 12 titles since 2003. In the NBA, the Knicks came up clutch in the fourth quarter again to top the Pacers 130-121. The Knicks, who have already dealt with a rash of injuries, had more bad news with OG Anunoby leaving the game with a hamstring injury and Jalen Brunson missing a chunk of the first half, dealing with a foot injury before returning to score 24 in the second half. Tonight, the Cavaliers look for an answer to the Celtics, and the Mavericks try to steal one in OKC. In other news, the NBA Other NBA news, Nikola Jokic was named the NBA MVP, winning his third MVP award, becoming the 9th player in NBA history to do so. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic also received first-place votes. In Major League Baseball, the Astros dropped their 6th straight game to the Yankees, 9-4, and will try to salvage a game with Roniel Blanco on the mound, who is 3-0 so far this season. And the Rangers bounced back after losing the first game of their doubleheader to the A's yesterday to get a hard-fought 12-11 win in the second game to win the series. They will now have a day off before heading to Colorado to face the Rockies. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I don't know if you could have written this script any better for the New York Knicks and the Pacers in Game 2. So you're going to tell me actually on the anniversary of Willis Reed's dramatic injury, and then the emergence from the locker room in 1970, that Game 7, iconic Game 7 performance where he leads the Knicks to their first title. Basically, Jalen Brunson pulls a very similar move where, and obviously he didn't pull the move, but he ended up being hurt for the first half of that game, most of it, and then made a dramatic reemergence and scores 24 of his 29 points in the second half to lead the Knicks to a win over the Pacers. Now, not quite as dramatic as a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Like Willis Reed did. So it's a lot more dramatic. But that was emotional, I think, for a lot of Knicks fans to watch. This generation hadn't experienced anything like that. And we've talked about the new blood in this NBA playoffs, and that includes newer teams, and it only includes the new stars that you talk about all the time. Jalen Brunson is one of them stars. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's become one of those stars, and he proved it once again with the way he played in the second half of that game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's been a more clutch team in this playoffs than the Knicks, and there may have been, but they didn't need to be as clutch. I mean, the reality is the Knicks are continually being in these close games and just playing at a very high level and playing with such intensity and playing with such energy in the fourth quarter. And guys like Josh Hart are playing entire games, and Brunson's playing almost the entire game, except he gets hurt in the first half and then plays pretty much the whole second half and comes back and plays really well. And I mean, you could tell, how important Brunson is to this team, that when he went out, the mood in the building was different. You talk about the Villanova, they call them the Nova Knicks now.
DiVincenzo
and Josh Hart all played together with Brunson at the Knicks, and both those guys are not the same player without Jalen Brunson on the court. So if you start to take them away, it felt like it was going to go the other way. We also saw that this was the first game that we saw Tyrese Halliburton show back up in the game. And it was nice to see Tyrese Halliburton finally make an emergence back in the game.
Yeah, 34 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds. My man Patrick is a pro. Didn't even let it distract him as fire alarms are going off now in the background. Hopefully this is a test. And you don't actually have to exit the building. It's a test. Okay. So the tests usually don't last that long from what I remember in the building there. But you're right. We've said in these playoffs, it's about superstars in clutch time. And sometimes it's your superstars that step up in clutch time, but you need somebody to step up and make plays for you in clutch time. And the Knicks have had that. And sometimes it's been their stars to step up, but sometimes, like you said, it's been DiVincenzo. Sometimes it's been Josh Hart. Both those guys played well. DiVincenzo had 28. Josh Hart had 19, 15, and 7. Josh Hart has been unbelievable. He's played more actually than any of the other Knicks in this series. He's played more minutes and made the most out of them. Been filling up the stat sheet for the last 2 games and has been unbelievable there with the Knicks. Actually, even going back to last series, late in last series, he was playing really, really well. But yeah, I mean, right now I'm with you about how clutch the Knicks are. Jalen Brunson, he's kind of a spiritual mascot for them when he comes on the court. You can tell I'm with you. It changes not only the way they play, of course, but it changes the energy level, it feels like, for that Knicks team. So 24 of his 29 points in the final 2 quarters. They win 130-121. And I mean, you said it, they could end up. I mean, we think about potentially a sweep in this series, or will Indiana bounce back, win a game or 2 at home, potentially make this thing a series?
I mean, and I'll apologize for the fire alarm that's still going off.
Yeah, but it's not his fault.
Tyrese Halliburton, the fact that he reemerged in this game with 7 for 11 from 3-point lane makes me believe that this is a series that the Pacers can get back into on their home court. We know that Brunson's going to feel worse today than he felt during that game with the injury. That's just how injuries normally work. You can get that, the brush of adrenaline, and, they can do whatever they can do in the back, but he's going to be there. OG Anunoby, we don't know how his injury is going to be. He came out of the game with a hamstring. We've seen hamstrings take other guys out. So I think the Pacers at least win one in this series because they've been close and because Tyrese Halliburton finally showed back up, which he hasn't done in a while, but that shooting performance from him, if he gets his shot back, all of a sudden that changes the dynamics. Now they have to learn to play defense, because if you can't play defense, then, you can't allow 130 points in a game.
130 points.
You just can't do
130 is a lot.
So
they scored 121.
So you're going to have to step up that defensive ability a little bit more. Because you saw, it's when OG goes out of the game, that takes one of the defensive players away from the Knicks. They just responded by having more offense. You got to rebound the ball better, have more energy. But I think they were, as much as you saw that Brunson's impact meant in the second half for the Knicks and that New York crowd, it just seemed to take the wind out of the Pacers' sails too, when that crowd was getting very loud in the second half. Rick Carlisle gets ejected, and none of it got the Pacers feeling where they needed to be. It felt like after that first half, they got the lead. They were feeling pretty good about it. Brunson came back in, and the entire team wasn't playing at a high enough level, where Tyrese Halliburton was playing better than he's played in a while. Miles Turner did not have a great game in there. You need to have a Miles Turner show up with you. Pascal Siakam didn't have a great game in there as well. So if you can put Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, good game in there, which you're hoping you get one of in the next two games, then Indiana can win at home, I think. The big question is, does New York take over Indiana like they took over Philadelphia? It's a little bit further to go, but still cheaper than it is to go to a game in New York.
That's fair. Do you want to travel to Indiana? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, if you
for them, it's a better in a more fun trip to go to Philadelphia than go to Indiana.
It is, and you can drive to Philadelphia, or you can take the train to Philadelphia. You can get to Philadelphia, but if you have to go to Indy, but Indy's also cheaper than Philadelphia, so there are reports that you can basically fly to Indy, rent a car, get a hotel across the street from the arena, and go to the arena for the game and stay in the hotel for 2 nights, and it's cheaper than going to a game in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. But it feels like an overnight trip for them.
They
go overnight and they fly and then they come right back. You know what I mean? So it's a little different, but you're right. They could take it over. They haven't been here in a while, so who knows how Knicks fans are going to react. We have no idea. We don't have a sample size because it's been so long since the Knicks have been this good in the playoffs.
And this is one of those teams for the Knicks where they love it because they feel like Knicks fans feel like this is more of a blue-collar team, and they feel it's a more rough team than they feel like, it's Jalen Brunson's not that star player that you get that is a prima donna, or, so the people in New York that, want to believe that they're the tough city and they're, rough and tumble, that this is the team that embodies that. So I think they really, really like this team. And you could tell at the end of that game how fired up that Knicks crowd was. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, but I think Indy, we'll see it too if the owners from Indy and everybody tries to fight back. I know Philadelphia in that in the elimination game, they came in, the Philadelphia owners bought a bunch of the tickets so that New York fans couldn't get them, and then basically either resold them or gave them out to people in Philadelphia so they could get a home court advantage again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they get to Indiana. But I'm excited to see Tyrese Halliburton showing back up in this game is a huge, huge piece of the series, because he just hasn't been a good player really so far this postseason. And this was his first game where he kind of stepped back up. And unfortunately, that was due to the fact that Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner weren't there, and somebody had to, or else this would have been just a blowout.
Yeah, it's interesting that, Indiana had a chance to win game 1 too. I mean, they were up, I think, 9 with 10 and a half minutes left. I think they were up 5 with 4.5 minutes left. And Tyrese Halliburton, as you pointed out, did not have a great game. Bounced back, obviously, in game 2 with 34, 9, and 6. And they were up double digits in this game. And if not for Jalen Brunson coming back and his heroic effort, and maybe not for them unraveling Rick Carlisle getting ejected from the game, they may have a chance in this game to steal it.
Yeah.
If Jalen Brunson stays out for, I don't know, 10 more minutes as opposed to coming back when he did, they got a shot to win this game. So you're right, there is some hope for Indiana because they could have stole one of these games. They were in a prime position to steal one of them, and it just got away from them late. So I'm with you. There's a good chance they steal one. I mean, they make this a series. The Knicks will be trying to steal one of those games on the road, but I'm with you. I like the Indiana Pacers chance of winning at home and making this a series, but they got to play some defense, as you pointed out too. Okay, let's get to Jokic and him winning his third MVP. And let's talk about the legacy of the big man. It puts him in rarefied air. Only 9 players in NBA history have been able to win at least three MVP awards. That would be Moses Malone, Jokic, obviously one of them, Magic, and Bird. They all have 3. LeBron, Wilt have 4, and Bill Russell and MJ have 5, and Kareem has 6. Where does this put him? Man, a lot of those big men. Where does this put Jokic among the all-time great big men now?
I mean, he's definitely
on the Mount Rushmore of the all-time great big men.
I don't know if I'm putting him on the Mount Rushmore yet because, again, I need to see longevity in it. Because
more championships,
more championships, and I want to see him be great for 10 years. You know, because these guys won 4 or 5 or 6. You know, they won them, but they won them. You know, they were great players for more than a decade, and icons of the league for more than a decade. And Jokic has been an icon. Has been a big piece of the league for 5 years now. He kind of came on the scene and then was all of a sudden really good and really played. But he's got about a 5 years in him. So he's got to play this level or around this level. Now, he doesn't have to be MVP quality, but a top player in the league, all-star for another 5 years is what you want to see to then say, okay, now he starts to get in that pantheon. Because you have guys like Shaq who aren't on that list, and Shaq's a better player than Jokic. You know, if you want to talk about impact on the league and what he did, he just played against, there was just other MVP caliber players that were going up against him. And, there's some other factors you can throw in there that the rules, now that you have to have, X amount of players, the injuries in the league are getting worse and worse as players are getting more and more athletic and, their moves are getting more and more violent. There's more and more injuries in the league and people just don't play through the injuries like they used to. So you see guys like Embiid, who would have competed for another MVP this year, was playing really good basketball. Ja Morant is a guy who can get on that list. So I think that I think that he's getting there, but I want to see the longevity of Jokic where he puts together at least a decade of really, really good basketball before you start to say he's one of the top 4 best big men in a league with Bill Russell and Kareem and Wilt Chamberlain and Shaquille O'Neal and, Akeem Olajuwon and guys like that who are just dominating for a decade plus.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. If he wins another MVP award, it's going to be hard to deny him that he's.
No, I agree.
One of those guys. But you're right. I mean, I agree with that in terms of the longevity. And this series actually is going to be big in terms of the legacy overall of Jokic as a player. Because it feels like he came out of nowhere. Obviously, that wasn't necessarily the case, but it feels like his stardom. Like it just.
He was a late second round pick.
You know what I'm saying? Like it did. So that's what I'm saying. It feels like it was a build up to it.
Yeah.
And it didn't just out of nowhere. But it is something that I'm with you. I don't necessarily know if you can say that he's been a dominant force for that long. But if you go look at what he's done so far, I do think this series that he's in right now against Minnesota, if he can come back and make it a series, if they can come back and win this series, which will, by the way, be the first time in NBA history that a current champion, a defending champion, has been down 2-0 after losing the first two games at home and come back to win a series. That's never happened before. So it at least for a defending champion. So it would go far in terms of building on his legacy if he was able to bring his team back. I don't know how likely that is because Minnesota looks like a force of nature right now. But yeah, I mean, Jokic he's still young enough to be in the conversation. My only concern about him having longevity, as you pointed out, would be I don't know if he loves the game enough to play that long.
Yeah, and I mean, if he continues to win at a high level, at what point? Now, also, you could see the other side of this is a guy who just says, no, I want to make as much money as I possibly can. And, for a lot of foreign players, there's also this impact of this is not something I can do in my home country. This is not a place. I can't go home and make millions upon millions of dollars to play a game and to play a sport. I can't do that there. I can do that in America. So I'll stay here until I'm 40 and make all the money I can and then go live the rest of my life and be plenty happy because at 40, he'll still be making $50 million a year.
Yeah, he just strikes me as a guy that if
I
he
agree.
has the success he wants, that he can hang it up.
No,
early.
and that's
Like,
if he in reality, I think it is. I think it's for a lot of guys. It's is this enough amount of money that I can go home and live the rest of my life in happiness, and I don't have to worry about it.
And he seems like that kind of guy because I don't know if his cost of living is that high. He seems like a pretty modest.
Well, he does have a horse habit, and horses are expensive. So
horses are expensive. They are expensive.
No, and so if you look, he's a 6-time All-Star, so that's basically where you put the list on there. Is he's got 6 since 2019. He has been a top player in the league, so an All-Star in the league since 2019. So if you say all he's got to do is make it to 2029 as an All-Star, and then you start to put him in that list of 10-time All-Stars who are also 3-time MVPs, and that longevity, and it starts to boost up his resume, and that's where you really, really start to have to compare resumes for what guys do. And also, you like to see another title in there to really put him on that pantheon of great players. But that's, again, we're talking about the greatest of the greats. We are saying he's moving up into that range of he's probably already getting into that top 20 all-time list. And if you say he's starting to get in that top 20 all-time, that's a pretty exclusive list if you're talking about getting up in that list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him deteriorating like quickly. Like I don't see him, as a player deteriorating that quickly. So I'm going to assume at least for the next 2 years, we still see this type of Jokic.
Yeah, and he's 29.
2 to 3 years, maybe you see, and then maybe after that you start to see the decline. But right now, I don't see decline happening in the next 2 to 3 years, which would say at least he'll make 7 years or so as a dominant player in the NBA, arguably the best player in the league. And if he does that, I'm with you. I think you start talking about, and if he can rack up another MVP, maybe another title. Oh man, he might be in that rarefied era to be, top 4 to 5 greatest big men of all time. And I'm with you. That's a tough list to crack. Top 5.
But this is a big thing too. Is that the NBA is a weird, fickle league at points, and if they get bounced by Minnesota
in the first
round, and either Anthony Edwards or really SGA goes on and wins a title, they now get involved in MVP talk, real MVP talks. I know a lot of people, and I know Shaq was very upset about SGA not being given the MVP yesterday. But the way the voters are, for the most point, is they want you to prove that you're an MVP for at least a season before they're even going to vote for you for MVP, which is maybe stupid and silly, but that's just the way they vote. We've seen it with multiple guys that they don't win it their first time around. It takes them a time or two. They want to see playoff success before they vote for him. And it just is, unless you have a far and away, you're the guy, there is no other choice. It's really hard to win unless you're already established. And for Jokic, it was 2 guys who are not fully established in Luka and SGA. Luka is a good player, but hasn't had the success in postseason yet. And they didn't feel that he was a guy. SGA was a guy that I don't think a lot of people watched because he's in Oklahoma City. So if he makes a playoff run and does things in the playoffs, well, now he's on everybody's radar because all these voters who are supposed to be watching everybody will have watched him perform in the playoffs. And now he enters in the conversation. And once you start to enter those in, if Embiid can stay healthy for a full season, he's in that conversation. Giannis, if he stays healthy and they work this out with Dame, he's in the conversation still for a couple more years. I think there's other guys to kind of battle with Jokic for a few more years for the MVP conversation. But if they get bounced, especially if they get swept, that holds on for another year when people are voting for MVP because they don't just vote on one season like you're supposed to. They don't. They will hold it over and say that lack of success in the postseason last year, I don't know if we can vote for him. Because it's one of the things with Giannis is once Giannis was not having postseason success, his MVP voting went down, even though he still puts up really, really good numbers.
Yeah.
And they still have a good regular season team. They want to see the postseason success tied into it. And it's just the way the voters work. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a different argument altogether. Just historically, if you look at it that way, they like to see people win. And then they come back and say, well, you won. And then you're responding to a winning season by having this, another statistically anomaly of a year where you're one of the best players in the league. And then you can throw in one of the other reasons is a lot of people feel SGA was not the guy. Like they feel SGA could be missing off the Thunder and that would still be a top 4 team.
Okay.
Whether that's true or not is anybody's guess, but that's what they feel. feel Jalen Williams has really progressed and been a really good player. Chet Holmgren's a really good player. Lou Dort's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. So they feel that team would be. But if you take Jokic off of the Nuggets, they're not a playoff team. I think if you take Luke off the Mavs, they're not a playoff team. And so I think there was something of those two that, Luka got a little bit of love because of that. But SGA, I think what kind of hurt him was that team is really good. And so it kind of felt that it wasn't necessarily his team. And again, people just didn't watch him enough. The same way with Jokic for probably a year or two before he won his first MVP, that he was in Denver and not getting it until he started to have some more postseason success. And then people started to really take notice of Jokic.
Yeah, no, I agree with your theory, because when you look at the MVP, it's a regular season award, but everybody, in terms of your point, everybody puts so much weight on what you do in the playoffs, but it's a regular season award. So the mainstream media has almost kind of shifted where they use the postseason from the previous season and then the current regular season as their gauge to vote for MVP. And then the same thing happens next season. So it'll be this postseason, like you said, with SGA, where he can cement himself or announce himself to the world. And then next regular season, if he does exactly what he did this regular season and they're the number one seed again, he'll win his MVP because of what he did in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And what he did in that regular season.
Yes.
So I'm with you. It does feel like it's a 2-year award now in terms of how they're judging it, but it's based on the postseason from the previous year and then the current regular season. Yeah, and honestly, I'm not opposed to that because I do want to see what guys do in the postseason. Yeah. This is the problem with the NFL. The NFL doesn't do that. And then you get that. That's why Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of hate comes at Lamar Jackson because he wins the MVP award and then he gets bounced from the playoffs. Everybody's like, well, he got bounced from the playoffs. He never wins anything in the playoffs, yet he's the best player during the regular season. So I'm not opposed to the way that NBA writers have kind of, changed the process a little bit or at least tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah. And there's a part of it that's good. And there's a part of it that is the gatekeeping of the NBA, which is we don't trust you until you've done this for 2 or 3 seasons. We don't want a fluky MVP on the records that we are the ones who voted for a fluky MVP, that, this guy won 1 MVP and he was out of the league in 4 years, or this guy won 1 MVP and now he's nothing, they don't want that player as much. They'd rather have an MVP where they say, no, this guy's a champion player. This guy is all around, all-time great. I voted for him and I stamp of approval it. I think it's one of the reasons why guys like Harden and Westbrook, it took so long for them to win it, was because they were guys that they went, well, you're not going to win a title probably. You don't play title basketball. So we don't know if we want to give it to you if you're going to be non-champ. But if you stick around for long enough and you're consistently good for long enough, then you kind of get that vote on the back end, because now you're winning it in year 9, year 10, year 11. And we feel, okay, now we feel justified in giving it to you because you've already had the career and it's somewhat more of a lifetime achievement award than it is just that you had this great season. So, it's all swaying small parts of a vote. But if you want to know why Jokic, in my opinion, was, such a heavy winner over SGA, it has more to do with the fact that Oklahoma City Thunder team is coming out of nowhere. And so they just weren't as watched and they just don't have the postseason skins on the wall to give them that award where Jokic does. And so they feel more confident giving it to Jokic.
Yeah. It's just it's something you got to build up to in the NBA, and I like the way you put it. And as I said, I'm not opposed to that because I do think, I think what's the worst MVP the NBA has had in a while. Honestly, the one that probably fits the profile of the writers that you said they're trying to guard against, like the gatekeepers, would probably be and it's not necessarily his fault, probably the Derrick Rose MVP.
Yeah, and that was because of injury, but I agree. Because of
injuries, but it's exactly what they were trying to guard against. Like basically, he's not a Hall of Fame player, but he's going to be an MVP. Yeah, and if you go look in the NBA, almost all their MVPs are Hall of Famers or on the track to be a Hall of Famer. And Derrick Rose would probably be the only one in the last, 30 years, 30 years or longer. That's not in it. That's not a Hall of Famer.
Now, for the record,
not gonna track to be a Hall of Famer.
He might still be a Hall of Famer. It's basketball.
If he is, y'all Hall of Famer is terrible.
I'm just
come
saying.
on, you can't make Derrick Rose can't be a Hall of Famer. That's ridiculous.
Just saying he might be. Saying he might be.
Come on, just disrespect every great player in the history of the game. Come on, guys.
I
Water
mean,
it down.
they're talking about Robert Ory being one, so I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But no, but I'm
Yeah.
with you because if you look up until 2008, 2009, that's when LeBron James won it. Every single player who's won the MVP is in the Hall of Fame. Every single
There
one
you
of
go.
them.
Yeah.
And then there's Derrick Rose in 2010, 10, 11, and a sandwich of the 4 LeBron MVPs there. And then Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, Jokic.
Yep.
So
your gatekeeping theory is right. They so only one, but they're right. It wasn't necessarily the writer's fault. It was injury that derailed D Rose's career from being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, their gatekeeping strategy would still continue to work. Really well.
And so it's but if that's where people will get upset, I get it. Now they also don't want to look like idiots, and if Timberwolves sweep the Nuggets, then all those writers could be like, ding, we missed again.
But honestly, everybody was surprised by the Nuggets.
No, I agree.
People thought Nuggets would be. Everybody surprised by the Timberwolves. Everybody thought they'd be good, but nobody thought they'd sweep the defending champions.
No, and they haven't yet. They have not yet, but
it's likely.
It's the first 2 games did not look good. Let's put it that way.
Looking worse. That game 2 looked worse than game 1.
And they didn't even have Rudy Gobert.
And they didn't have Rudy Gobert.
Apparently.
Exactly.
But again, if you want to know, Defensive Player of the Year, why is Wemby not winning it? Gatekeeping. You give it to Rudy Gobert. He's been there. We know he's there. We're not giving it to this rookie. He may fizz out. He may be a bust after one season. We're not giving it to him. Rookie of the Year, you have to give to a rookie. So that you can't gatekeep on that one. But everything else, there's a little bit more gatekeeping. So once again, it falls into that realm. But
totally agree with you. No, I'm with you. I think your theory is right on the money there about the gatekeeping. And like I said, we'll talk about Jokic and his legacy even more. But I believe this series versus Minnesota, it is going to do a lot to affect his legacy negatively or positively if he can help bring his team back and at least make it competitive. Because right now, it looks like the Timberwolves are preparing to break out the brooms. All right, we come back. We'll get to some Texas football conversation. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk Texas because there are a lot of articles. I saw a couple over at Around the NFL, NFL.com. I saw a couple over at Pro Football Focus referencing the biggest steals, the best talent value acquisitions in this past NFL draft. A couple of Longhorns getting some love there, and also there's a list of day 3 picks that could end up being day 1 starters. There's also some Longhorns getting some love on that list. So we'll talk about the Longhorns who are starting their NFL careers, and a lot of folks high on these guys to have a fast start to those careers. And we'll talk about why. On the other side, we go behind the burnt orange curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Go behind the burnt orange curtain. I saw several articles that referenced the Longhorns from the past NFL draft this season, and two of them from NFL.com. One was titled "10 Rookies in the Best Situations," and it listed two Longhorns, and one was day three picks who could start year one. And the day three picks, I start there. Day three picks who can start year one. My man JT Sanders made the list. And remember, I told you guys I thought JT Sanders will be starting for the Panthers by year two. Well, this article at NFL.com says they believe he could be starting by year one. I don't know if he'll do year one is tough on a rookie. You got to learn the system, acclimating to the NFL, the physicality of the league, the competition level. That's tough. I'm not saying JT Sanders couldn't do it, but it is tough. But like I said, I think by year two, JT Sanders is entrenched there as the starting tight end. Listen to this. The Panthers, if you look at their tight ends overall, they combined last season for 59 receptions for 561 yards. Those were both bottom six numbers in the NFL for the overall tight end position. No individual tight end for the Panthers gained more than 25 receptions or 200 receiving yards. And I think JT Sanders could come in there, and just looking at the tight ends they have on the roster, no disrespect to these guys because they're pros. But I think JT Sanders just off the jump has a higher ceiling than Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas. His contested catch ability is gonna, I think, be a real asset for Bryce Young, who hasn't proven yet that he can throw guys open and has that anticipatory ability at the NFL level. I'm sure it will come. Dave Canales has done a really good job resurrecting quarterbacks' careers and their skill sets, guys who people thought were busts and were done, like Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith. So hopefully he can do the same thing with a guy like Bryce Young. But if he doesn't, and you're throwing, to some of these tight ends, which could be a good safety blanket for a young quarterback, and he's not necessarily able to throw a receiver open, which you have to do in the league a lot, then you're going to be in contested catch situations. No tight end was better in college football at contested catches than JT Sanders. His grade on contested catches was a 91 Pro Football Focus grade on contested catches. Didn't have one drop on his 67 targets in 2023. So I think JT Sanders, I agree with this article. I do think he'll end up starting by year two. They say, Patrick, it could be by year one. I don't think that's crazy. I just think that's a little tough. Maybe by mid-season or something like that, but we'll see how competitive that tight end room is.
Well, and I'll throw in the positive for him is that it is a first-year head coach and a new coach in the system. So he is coming in with a similar learning curve as some of these other tight ends who maybe, they don't know the playbook either. This may be a completely different playbook. The negative is Dave Canales, we were listening to the audio yesterday, wants to run the ball a lot. And if he wants to run the ball a lot, JT Sanders needs to get better at run blocking.
That is true. Yeah.
So
it goes without saying.
Yeah.
You're right.
Because if he doesn't do that, and they want to run the ball, that's going to take away snaps from him, take away opportunities from him.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. And we know that, unfortunately for him during the testing phase of the offseason, getting ready for the combine, I believe it was it 9 reps on the bench?
It wasn't great.
It was single digits.
Yeah.
It was single digit reps on the bench, which was not a good look for a tight end. And a lot of scouts, they just connected that with his subpar blocking. Was like, well, you obviously are a bad blocker because you're not strong enough. You're not strong enough because you're not in the weight room enough. You're not in the weight room enough because then you can fill in the blank there.
Yeah.
And that's what scouts jump to. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's their leap. So he's got to take care of that. And you're right, Patrick. That's an astute observation. He's got to make sure he gets to run blocking right. Speaking of, we talked about this yesterday, and Jonathan Brooks is not on this list. He should be, but I did see a report yesterday that he's going to be ready for training camp.
Okay.
That he actually, that he's on pace to be ready for training camp. And if that is the case, then maybe Jay Brooks should have made this list too. I mean, he was the top running back in this class. And I found this little stat about Jay Brooks and about Rachaad White. So Rachaad White was the running back for the Bucs when Dave Canales was the play caller there with the Bucs, and Baker Mayfield, the starting quarterback. And I didn't realize this, but I had a fantasy nerd essentially hit me up and say, "Oh man, do you realize Jay Brooks is about to get a ton of usage as a runner?" We know that because Dave Canales just said, "Hey, I'm going to be stubborn about running the football," and he's their running back for the future. but also as a pass catcher. I didn't realize it. So Rashad White, who was the running back for the bell cow running back for the Bucks when Dave Canales was there last year, he had 70 targets. That was sixth among running backs. He had 64 receptions. That was fourth among running backs. He was first among running backs in routes run out of the backfield. First. I'm talking about more than Christian McCaffrey. He was third in, if you go look at it, receiving yards among running backs. I didn't realize he had been that productive in the passing game, and a lot of people are saying like that's Jonathan Brooks is going to be that for them as well. And one thing that Jonathan Brooks was great at, and Sark was really good at it, the screen game, which Dave Canales apparently is a genius at, being able to engineer really good screens. Jay Brooks, of all the Power 5 running backs to have at least 10 screen pass targets, he had the highest grade. He was the best running back running screens in all of college football based on his Pro Football Focus grade. And if you go look at Rashad White and what he did on screen passes, he had a 91 Pro Football Focus grade on receiving screens, and he actually averaged 10.3 yards per reception. And his catch rate was 100% on screen passes. And he averaged, how about this? 15.6 yards after the catch per reception. So he was the best running back in the NFL at executing screen passes. Jay Brooks was the best running back in college football at executing screen passes. Put the two together, boom, Dave Canales has basically got another running back that can be a weapon in the screen game. So he wasn't on the list, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm curious how much Dave Canales actually leaves his running backs back in pass protection then. If you talk about how many routes he sends out running backs, it could just be that he's more in the philosophy of I'd rather have a quarterback, and Bryce is a guy like that, and Baker's kind of like that. Go just take 2 steps and ditch it off to your running back. I'd rather have that than sticking back there in pass pro and have a guy out there that maybe you can get and try and not let them blitz because we'll always have a guy open.
I think you're right about that, because that's been the philosophy of some offensive coordinators, that I'd rather have more guys out on routes. And yes, you may win the pressure advantage in terms of numbers. You may have more defenders and blockers rushing the quarterback, but I'm going to have more receivers than you can defend and you can cover. I just got to find the right one. You got to find it quick enough before the pressure gets home. And that's kind of what Dave Canales believes. He's like, no,
because if you say
it off quick,
if you say the lead back is getting the most reception, the most receiving routes, that would lead me to believe that he is just not a huge fan of leaving a running back in pass protection.
And some coordinators believe, I didn't bring you here to block, man. You're a running back. I brought you here to tote the rock. Let's go get you the rock. So that's good. Yeah, you're right on that. I got to go and see. That means, honestly, going back to your point about JT Sanders, he's got to be a better blocker, because to me, that probably would mean they leave their tight end in to block more often than they do for the running backs, just kind of based on numbers. But I'll go check that out to make sure. But anyway, getting back to it, that's a good point there. Let's get to the other list, because the NFL.com also had 10 rookies in the best situations. That was day 3 picks who could start day 1 and enable year 1, I should say. And they believe JT Sanders is definitely on that list. Rookies in the best situations. They got 2 Longhorns listed here. Xavier Worthy's listed. No shock at all. We've been talking about that. I don't know if there's a better fit for any player in the draft than Xavier Worthy with the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say this, though, and this is how you know that Andy Reid and Brett Veach are looking to develop part of Xavier Worthy's game that wasn't necessarily highlighted at the University of Texas, because they're definitely going to bring him in to bring the verticality back to the offense and the deep ball. But if you go look at the actual numbers and analytics, that's how you know these guys are watching film and they're not just looking at the numbers and the analytics. Xavier Worthy wasn't a great deep ball receiver. He had the speed to get deep, but the connection wasn't made as often as you think. Now, a lot of people are putting that on Quinn Ewers and not on Xavier Worthy, that Quinn just couldn't make the connection. But if you go look at it, the completion rate for targets to Xavier Worthy on deep passes, 20-plus yards downfield, 25.5%, third worst mark in the FBS over the past 3 seasons among qualifying wide receivers. They couldn't make the connection, but I think they see the vision that no, our quarterback will make the connection, and he was created separation, and he was open deep. Oftentimes, he had to make difficult adjustments. The ball may have been thrown over the wrong shoulder, ball may have been underthrown or overthrown. So you said they've scouted, and I think also they're looking at yards after the catch and what the fastest man in history of the combine can do yards after catch wise. Kansas City Chiefs passing offense resulted in the highest percentage of passing yards coming after the catch in 2023. Over 60% of Patrick Mahomes' passing yards came after the catch. And that's even more than the previous year when they finished with, I think, the third highest mark, which is 54% of the passing yards coming on yards after the catch. I talked about how, Patrick Mahomes they've really taken the deep ball out of the offense. Average touchdown pass for Patrick Mahomes last year was less than 4 yards. In 2019, that was 17 yards was the average yards on a touchdown throw from Patrick Mahomes. They want to bring back the verticality, but also they want to see what the fastest human in history of the combine can look like in the best yak yards offense. I said yards, kind of redundant. The best yak offense, I should say, yards after the catch offense in the NFL. And that, I think, Patrick, is a scary thought. And considering Patrick Mahomes is great, he's the best, I think second best statistically, but I think he's the best based on that test at sack avoidance in the NFL. That means extending the plays. Imagine extending the plays with that dude, Xavier Worthy, in the scramble drill. Also something you didn't see him do a lot at the University of Texas. So I think, Patrick, a lot of what they're bringing in Xavier Worthy for, they didn't really see it at Texas. They saw the potential for it at Texas.
No, I agree with that. And I think, if you're Xavier Worthy, I would go try and sit down with Travis Kelce at some point too and be like, how do you follow Patrick Mahomes around the field? Because I'd like to figure out a way to work with you and do it so we're not in the same space, but I'll do it 20 yards further down the field. But I want to be able to give him layers that he can throw to. And do I need to pull a safety over here? Let's figure out the way that I know how to follow his eyes and stay in that game, because that's what Travis Kelce's game is staying available and staying in Patrick Mahomes' eyesight. And making it so that, when he avoids the sacks and looks back up the field, he can chunk it off real quick. If Xavier Worthy can do that, but further down the field, I think the Chiefs would be big fans of that.
Yeah, no, I imagine it's just hanging out together, right? Kicking the chemistry and continuity. And that's something I'm sure X-Man's already.
You got to start listening to those Taylor Swift albums.
Got to start exactly. Yeah, no, seriously, whatever it takes, man. That's crazy that I'm sure X-Man's gonna be hanging out with Taylor Swift pretty soon if he hasn't already been doing it. The other guy that was listed on this 10 rookies in the best situations, they had. By the way, X-Man was at number 2 on this list. Byron Murphy. It's only a 10 person list. Byron Murphy at number 9 on this list with the Seattle Seahawks. Basically says that Byron Murphy may be the last missing piece to one of the best D lines in all of football. They'll have Leonard Williams there on that D line. They'll have Jerron Reed, Nwosu, Draymond Jones is also on that D line. It's going to be a pretty stout group. It's going to need to be stout because they've been going up against the Shanahan offense and the 49ers twice a year. Nobody is a more run heavy offense than the 49ers, and they'll be going up against Sean McVay, one of the most respected offensive minds in football too. So glad they got Byron Murphy, but here they said perfect situation for him because of Mike McDonald, the head coach, being a defensive coach, and lots of pieces on the D-line, so they won't be able to double team him consistently. There'll be other guys there. There'll be a threat on that D-line. That's why it's a great situation for Byron Murphy. Okay. Before I know we got to get to the break here. I want to get to the big fat poll today. Just real quick, because we won't dive into it. There was some steals mentioned in the Pro Football Focus article. They mentioned day 2 steals, A.D. Mitchell, who we've talked about. Remember, Greg Cosell said yesterday he thinks he's got top 10 wide receiver traits. Yeah, top 10 in the NFL, that he could be one day a top 10 receiver. He's got those kind of traits and attributes. And he said a 30-year NFL veteran coach said that he had him ranked over a Romeo Dunze as a wideout prospect, and he got drafted in the 2nd round. So he was listed as one of the biggest steals of day 2, and JT Sanders was listed as the biggest steal of day 3 on the Pro Football Focus draft steals report. So there you go. Some Longhorns getting some love there. All right, we come back. We'll give my man Patrick some love. Big fat poll today coming up. Always has a good conversation starter. And also we'll get to know the musically themed day of the week. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Aside from the traffic, Austin is one of the best cities in the country. And the reason that the traffic gets worse is because people keep moving to Austin, making it one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And as our city continues to grow and thrive, well, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local 482. Many of the iconic landmarks we love in this city were created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. And right now, they're constructing another big project right here in Central Texas, and they need your help. They're hiring over 3,000 people for this project. They're actually offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or you want a refreshing career change, you can become a member of Ironworkers Local 482. If you want a new challenge, or maybe you want to feel valued at your job, feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. And right now is the perfect time to do it. Once you become a member of Ironworkers Local 482, then you'll take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. So go online today and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Thursday morning, and that means it's a new theme Thursday, and you might be able to guess. The new theme for today is Mother's Day. Mother's Day is coming up on Sunday. Reminder to call your moms and to get your wives and to get all those things, get those squared away, because it is coming up on Sunday. So playing songs about mothers all day long here on the Rodcast. It's a solid track, BB King. Nobody loves me about my mother, but she might be jiving too.
Wow. That's hardcore, man. Not gonna lie.
That
Not
is
gonna lie, BB.
that is
That's hardcore, man.
that is a solid blues song right
And
there.
it's like, damn, man, what did mama think when you said that? She might be jiving too. I don't know. It's like, what did mama do to you that you think mama's love is somehow, conditional? Man, all right. I feel bad for BB on that. That's right. That's blues right
That's
there.
the blues.
You don't
right
know.
there.
You're not sure if your mama loves you. You think she does.
You
You're like,
think.
I'm about 80% sure she does. She might be jiving too. She might be jiving too.
Let's get to the big fat poll today. Text lines open 512-447-3776.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
All right, we're in the NBA playoffs. One team has won every single game in the second round. There is no series that are even. We could get one tonight. There's two more series that have one game tonight, but I will ask you right now, which NBA team has the best chance to come back and win their series? 4 teams right now that have that chance: the Mavericks, the Cavaliers, the Pacers, and the Nuggets will be your 4 choices on that one. Which one of those teams do you think has the best chance to come back and win their series? Now, all of them looked as if it was going to be decided one way or the other. It doesn't feel like any of those teams, after the one games, it doesn't. I mean, no one thinks the Celtics are going to lose.
No.
So that one's a hard one. Oklahoma City looked like they had Dallas's number. Now Dallas, they've come back from things before, but they did not look great in that first round. Luka looked like he was overmatched by Oklahoma City, just coming through and blitzing him a ton. You throw in Denver, they don't look like they're playing well at all. Minnesota looks like they have their number. And the Knicks and Pacers have a shot in that, but I mean, the way the Knicks are playing right now, and they keep coming and they keep winning.
Yeah. That's a good question, actually, man. Honestly, no matter who you pick, it's gonna seem like a reach.
Yeah,
it does in terms of because you're right. All the teams that are down right now, they seem severely overmatched, and that includes Denver. I'm sorry, that includes the Nuggets. That right there looks like it's one of the most lopsided right now.
Does.
That's crazy for a defending champion. So usually you go there. They got to do it on the road now too.
Yeah, they're down 2-0 from home. That's what you can't say. You can't even say upset because the upset is Minnesota, clearly.
Yeah.
But they're you have to go to Minnesota.
Ooh, with that, the way that team is playing, with that energy, they had that energy on the road. Yeah. I can't imagine what kind of energy they're gonna have at home. That's a hornet's nest, man.
You better hope that that their families are in their face and bothering them.
Yes, that's a great point. You better hope they're distracted. You better hope they don't know how to handle success.
Yes,
because they're young and they haven't been here before. That's your hope, is that they haven't been here. They don't know how to handle it. They're cocky. They're arrogant. But if they're not, and they actually go into that game as hungry and ravenous as they've been these first 2 games, honestly, man, they could sweep. I really do think they could sweep a defending champion. I think it's possible. Now, it's happened before. I think they could sweep a defending champion. Hell, if it can happen to the Lakers, it can happen to anybody.
It can happen to anybody. But that's the question. So if you got it, do you think the Mavericks have the best chance? I mean, they got Luka and Kyrie. It feels like that's a chance. I mean, OKC looks really, really good. But again, they're a young team. So some people think that maybe the youth of that team, another team that won't be able to handle success, and a team that maybe the Mavericks figure out an answer to and get some help from some other guys, and Luka just does Luka things. Yeah. And
you need that. You need Luka things.
And if you can pull that one off, is it the Pacers? Jello Cat on the text line brings up a good point that the Knicks are continually getting more and more beat up. Mitchell Robinson's out. You already had Julius Randle out. Your starting power forward. Mitchell Robinson, your starting center, is now out. You now OJ Anunoby, we don't know a hamstring injury. They're going to have to see how that one goes. They have to check him out. If he's out, that's your starting small forward. And Jalen Brunson has a foot injury that we know he's now dealing with.
Yeah,
so that's your starting point guard.
Yeah.
So
you only battled through it for so long. Right?
Yeah, and so if you say you could be out 3 starters and one of them is hobbled.
Yeah, and Pacers get to go back home.
Pacers going back home. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the one.
That might be it, because honestly, we talked about if Tyrese Halliburton gives them anything at all, they can win game 1. If he gives them anything, he just had one of the worst games we've ever seen from Tyrese Halliburton. He bounced back. He was great in game 2. And in game 2, if Jalen Brunson is out for, I don't know, another 3 to 5 minutes, this is a good chance they win that game. And if their head coach isn't ejected, Rick Carlisle isn't ejected from the game, they kind of spiral. They were up double digits at one point, but obviously that's because the Knicks were dealing with injuries. They had a chance to steal both of those games. They just didn't know how to close. All right. ABC. All right. Always be closing. They haven't closed well. They haven't finished well. The Knicks have been, like you said, maybe the most clutch team in the playoffs. So maybe that's it to me. Maybe it's the Pacers. I would love to say the Mavs. I'd love to say the Mavs.
We get to see something tonight. You have to see something tonight to make that. But that's why I'm asking now, because I think you maybe see something tonight. You maybe see something tonight from the Mavs. So I'm going to go on the positive, and I did it today instead of waiting for tomorrow, because if we go wait for tomorrow and the Mavs win tonight, the question's thrown out completely.
Yeah, it is moot. Because there's still hope there. I've seen enough to know that Indiana, they can make it.
And I'm telling you, Tyrese Halliburton shooting really well last night. That is something to look forward to, because you just saw Siakam and Miles Turner disappear, but those guys have been more consistent than Tyrese Hunter at the end of the season, or not Tyrese Halliburton. So if you can say Tyrese Halliburton shows up at the end of the season and starts playing, like he played at the play-in tournament, and starts hitting shots, that changes a lot.
That might be it, man. It might be that one. But I would hope that it's the Mavs. But we got to see. You're right. Tonight's going to be big to see if the Mavs can make this thing interesting, or even if they lose. I just want to, because the last game wasn't even competitive for the Mavs. All right, good stuff there. Always great with the big fat poll today. We'll come back. We'll get into some Cowboys discussion. Stephen Jones, he had something to say about the Dak Prescott situation, and also about why the Cowboys haven't, in a more urgent way, addressed the running back position. We'll get to that audio. And also, there's a lot of talk about NIL culture in major college sports. Brian Kelly sparked up conversation, got LSU fans actually a little riled up with these comments. So we'll hear from Brian Kelly and Raj around the day. Also hear from Stephen Jones, talk Cowboys on the other side. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday, and thanks to my co-host, the ideal Patrick Davis, we always have great musically themed days of the week. And this new theme Thursday, obviously, the theme is Mother's Day. So, a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. In case I forget to say it tomorrow, and we can't say it enough. So, I appreciate my man Patrick with that. Also, appreciate playing a little Pac. Yeah. I knew the dear mom was coming.
I normally make you wait on this. I normally make you wait on the Tupac or make you wait on the one that's the obvious one. So let's just go with it. It's probably the most iconic Mother's Day song.
I think so. I don't know if there's a better Mother's Day
because
song
a lot of these songs will play, and it's like today they're about moms, but they're not necessarily like
a tribute to mom.
A tribute and appreciation songs. And this really gets held. This
was a great song. I mean, even your mama will like the song. Like, mama wouldn't usually like a hip hop song in dedication. Mama, she's like, this is a nice song. I like this song, baby. And you can actually play this song when you're hanging out with your mama on Mother's Day. Tupac, the GOAT, in my opinion. I know some people, they think other rap. This is how you know Tupac is the GOAT. We just had like the second biggest like rap beef in history, arguably, between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And now things are kind of settled down because somebody got shot at Drake's house. And Kendrick Lamar might deliver like a knockout blow with the "Not Like Us," but Drake's like, he's hinting that he's gonna respond on Instagram right now. You won't say I don't care, but the reason Tupac, that's how you know he's still the GOAT. There have been multiple references to Tupac in both of their diss tracks going back and forth. Nobody mentioned Biggie. Nobody mentioned Biggie at all.
Well, you know why though?
And nothing against Biggie, nothing against him, but nobody mentioned him. Boy, you got references to Tupac, but no references to Biggie. I know Biggie lost the rap beef, but you can't be talking about the GOAT in the GOAT conversation that he is in the GOAT conversation with Pac, because Pac has transcended, like he has stood the test of time. I don't know if Biggie has in terms of our hip hop consciousness. Like, we still are referencing and talking about Pac a lot more than we are Big.
Yeah, but also, I don't think you want to reference him because he may have some problematic friends right now.
Who?
Biggie.
Well,
he may have some problematic friends.
But Pac, listen, you know what? This is why Pac is even greater. He tried to tell y'all back then. Pac tried to tell y'all back then. Don't trust Puff. Did he tell you? He's like, man, that dude, don't trust that dude. That dude ain't right, man. I'm telling you. That dude is shady. He tried to tell y'all decades ago. Nobody would listen to Pac back then. Thought he was just rambling and raving. No. He was trying to tell you, don't trust Puffy, man. Don't trust him. He's shady. I'm just saying.
Hey, he's ahead of his time.
Being great.
Ahead of his time.
He definitely was ahead of his time. There's no doubt.
Tupac,
anyway,
the first man in cancel culture. We know that now.
I don't know. You're right. That's probably why nobody's talking about me, because that's what. But I say Pac back then he was vehement and he was adamant in his stance against Puffy. Like, no, P. Diddy is not a good human. He's a horrible human being. He's a terrible person. And Tupac, he never told us really why, but now we know.
Tupac hung out with Suge Knight.
That is true. That is a great. Who is in jail right now, by the way? Suge Knight in jail where he should be right now. And Pac was like, nah, I'd rather hang out with Suge. Suge's a cooler person. He's a better person than P. Diddy. It turns out he might have been right about that. Wow, talk about man being a clairvoyant. All right, Patrick also, he can predict the future at times. He does it with the question in the Big Fat Poll of the Day. Let the folks know what the topic is for the Big Fat Poll of the Day.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today. Which NBA team has the best chance to come back and win their series? It's 1-0 in 2 series, 2-0 in 2 other series. So is it the Mavs, the Cavs, the Nuggets, or the Pacers? Who has the best chance to come back and win their series? And it's crazy that I think the Nuggets are third on that list.
They're not the top of my list.
They're not the top. They may be third behind the Pacers and the Mavs. However you want to rank the Pacers and Mavs, I feel that they're both ahead of the Nuggets right now. I'm going to say the Cavs still fourth place. Just because they're playing the Celtics.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I think they're still fourth, but
okay. No, you're right about it, because I'll say you could make a case for the Nuggets that they have the toughest task, because they got to go now on the road to try to go steal one of those games, and it's like it feels like a game 7 each one, because you can't afford to get down 3-0. You can't afford to really get down 3-1. Either one feels hopeless to me if you're Denver, right? And doing it on the road is going to be tough. So, I'm with you. I think you're right. Right now, the Pacers feel like the team that might have the best shot. Just because we've seen they had a really good chance to win game 1. but they just couldn't find a way to close in clutch time. And they had a really good chance to win game 2. They were up double digits, and Jalen Brunson, is hampered by that injury a few minutes longer and doesn't come out and score 24 of his 29 in the second half, they win that matchup. But who knows how to get respect? Like you said, Tyrese Halliburton now, he's shown up to the party. That could be a huge difference maker for the Pacers. So right now, I think the Pacers for me. I think the Pacers are a team that is most likely, but we'll see. Yeah. Right now, the poll is saying the Nuggets and the Mavericks getting the most love.
And some people still love for the Nuggets. Yeah, the Mavs will see.
50%.
The Mavs is going to be, that is all about pride in tonight, because after tonight, it's going to feel one way or the other, I think either the Mavs come out and they lay another egg, and the Thunder will run away with it game 2, and that one feels unreachable now, or the Mavs at least hanging it. At least make it a game, and then you feel a little bit more confident about that. Luka Doncic shoots well again. Luka Doncic does some stuff, and I think then you feel more confident. I just don't know if he's beat up too. That is a guy who's beat up right now.
That's true. Nobody's talking about that, but he's been dealing with injuries too. And I think Oklahoma City's so deep. They got so many guys they can throw at him. And Lou Dort is just a really good defender. He's an elite, long defender. Just makes life tough. But I love your suggestion about the Mavs. Get out and run. You said it yesterday, and I think it was right on the money. That's an astute observation. Get out and transition.
Yeah.
Quit letting OKC set up their defense. Then you have to react to their D.
Yeah. I mean, I know you don't have the bench, that you don't necessarily want to make it a track meet with a young team. I get that. But you don't have to. Once you get on the other end, you can slow it back down again. You just need to go set up your offense before they set up their defense. And then once you get mismatches, you try and work on the mismatches. Once you're in position where you want to be, then you can ISO and you can do what you want to do. But you can't let them set a defense and have everybody where they want them to be.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a great point yesterday, and we'll see what the adjustments are by the Mavs. But they got to make some serious ones, because it did not look like they were. I don't know. This didn't look like they were going to be able to make that contest competitive in game 1. I know they're a better team than that. Their defense didn't show up either. Their defense actually has been pretty good down the stretch later into the season, especially in the playoffs. They held the Clippers to under 95 points in a couple of those games. The defense didn't show up, so they need the defense to show up, and they need Luka to be big and the support. That's a lot of things they need to win. That's the thing about the Mavs for me. They need Luka to show up. The defense has got to also be a big factor for them, and they need the supporting cast to step up and be able to supplement the offense when they decide to double Luka or neutralize Luka. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. It has to happen. That has to go right for the Mavs for them to win. And I don't know if that has to happen for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, all right, we'll get to more NBA discussion. Let's get to the Horn headlines. Let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with the Horn headlines quickly with my man Patrick Davis, and then we'll come back, talk some Dallas Cowboys. But right now, let's get to the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The number 1 ranked Texas softball begins their postseason with a matchup against Texas Tech in the second round of the Big 12 tournament today. Texas beat the Red Raiders by run rule in all 3 of their final games of the regular season. After winning their final regular season conference title, their first regular season conference title since 2010, the Longhorns are now seeking the first sweep of the Big 12 titles since 2003. In the NBA, the Knicks came up clutch in the fourth quarter again to top the Pacers 130-121. The Knicks, who have already dealt with a rash of injuries, had more bad news with OG Anunoby leaving the game with a hamstring injury, and Jalen Brunson missing a chunk of the first half, dealing with a foot injury before returning to score 24 in the second half. Tonight, the Cavaliers look for an answer to the Celtics, and the Mavericks try to steal one in OKC. In other NBA news, Nikola Jokic was named the NBA MVP for his 3rd MVP award, becoming the 9th player in NBA history to do so. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic also received first-place votes. In Major League Baseball, the Astros dropped their sixth straight game to the Yankees at 9-4, and will try to salvage a game with Roniel Blanco coming to the mound, who is 3-0 so far this season. And the Rangers bounced back after losing the first game of their doubleheader to the A's yesterday to get a hard-fought 12-11 win in the second game of their series. They will now have a day off before heading to Colorado to face the Rockies. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn headlines. Let's get to the Stephen Jones sound. He was on with Mad Dog Radio and spoke with Adam Sheen about The Cowboys situation with Dak. Also talked about the running back situation with the Cowboys. Let's start with his comments on Dak Prescott and about how he believes Dak Prescott is indeed a championship quarterback. Here is Stephen Jones on with Adam Sheen.
If I'm a Cowboys fan listening to this and we hear the commentary on the contract, do the Cowboys believe that Dak Prescott is the right guy to get over the hump and finally deliver that championship to the suffering fans of the Dallas Cowboys?
Absolutely. I mean, I totally think Dak can lead us to a championship. He does everything the right way. He's certainly the leader of this football team. He keeps, everybody motivated in the off season. He's got everybody working out and doing all the things that it takes to put in the work to give yourself every opportunity to win a championship. It just so happens that, sometimes, that old oblong football doesn't bounce your way. And, we've had some tough breaks and tough games there in the postseason, but, we've won 12 games 3 years in a row. I think that's right at the top in terms of what teams have done over a 3-year period. And, we're hanging around the rim. We've just got to go up there and grab it, to use a basketball term, and dunk it in. And we're hanging around the rim. We just got to get the job done.
Hanging around, another term. That's another one. Y'all can use that one. They're hanging around the rim. There you go. A toilet has a rim too, but they're hanging around.
That's what we all thought, right? That's what we all thought, right?
I know that's the first thing that came to mind, but he's right. They have been really close. They've won a lot of games. How about this? I saw this stat too. The Cowboys are now have the record for most consecutive playoff appearances without making a conference championship. I saw that in actually on NFL Live. The Kansas City Chiefs actually had it from 94 to 2017, and then of course Patrick came along. And the Dolphins are at 11, 94 to 2023, and it says here that the Cowboys, in terms of appearances in the playoffs without making a conference championship, that they're at 13 appearances without making a conference championship. So it for the Cowboys, it does seem like now it's become, no matter who the coach is, and now even whoever the quarterback is, because Romo was the quarterback too, and they had some of these same issues. That divisional round, they can't get past it. They can't.
Yeah.
It's been now, you're talking about multiple regimes, multiple starting quarterbacks. How do you get past the divisional round? Seems like we're talking about a systemic organizational issue. And so it's not just on Dak. Dak's a part of it. Like my mom always said, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Dak, it ain't your fault that you necessarily are. It seems like there's a ceiling that the Cowboys can't get past the divisional round, but it's your responsibility to break through that glass ceiling of sorts. And so I don't know how the Cowboys are going to do it, because it doesn't seem like they got better this offseason, and yet they lost. They regressed last season because they didn't even make it past the first round, and yet I think they've gotten worse. I will say I did see it. They brought in Zay Jones as to interview him as a potential third wide receiver. He's visiting with the Titans, the Cardinals, and the Chiefs as well, I believe. So it's no guarantee he's going to be with the Cowboys, but I just don't like the moves the Cowboys have made this offseason, and I don't think they've gotten better. A lot of teams have.
No, and I mean, again, I think, you get back some of the guys you drafted last year that weren't. You hope Mozzie Smith takes a step forward. Demo is going to be a big piece in that linebacker core that you thought he was going to be there last year, but got injured. I like your rookie class. I like some of the guys on the O-line, but you're replacing guys that we already did like. So I don't know if that's, a huge upgrade on the O-line. You need to replace them. You did a good job doing that, but I mean, I don't know if this is a team that, I think they keep putting too much pressure onto Dak to try and make Dak Patrick Mahomes and try and make Dak this quarterback that he's going to solve all the problems. And he's not that quarterback. He can win, but you need to have other pieces. You need to have a full team. And when you're not bringing in a top running back, when you're not trying to bring in other pieces, you have the wide receivers. You got CeeDee Lamb. I don't know how happy he's going to be going into this season if you don't pay him. That's a different
Seriously.
question. But I don't. Yeah, I don't. I'm with you, right? I don't think they got better, and there's question marks that linger from last season that were never addressed last season and weren't addressed this season, and then there's new question marks as well. And they're one of those weird teams to talk about because you say all these things and you still say this could easily still be a 12-win team.
Easily.
And so it's not like saying this is going to be a bad football team. It's can this team get over the hump that they have not been able to get over for years and years and years. And that's where I don't know if they have that ability. So it's not saying that they're going to be bad or any of those other pieces, but what do you do if you keep getting 12, 13 wins and it doesn't lead to postseason success? And their answer right now looks to be, well, we're just going to wait until that happens and then we'll figure it out then, which is not usually the best way to run a franchise in any sport.
Totally agree. And I think that's part of the issue for the Cowboys. It just feel like the regular season is empty. And it's great. It's winning 12 games. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment in the NFL, and yet it feels empty because when they get to the postseason, it doesn't necessarily translate. And you can argue the most talented team in the league, and you say talented team. They had 9 All-Pro. They had 9 Pro Bowlers. I mean, you're talking about they had more All-Pros and Pro Bowlers than any team in the league. So they're not bereft of talent either. There's a reason you win in 12 games, but those performers, and Micah Parsons is a primary example. I mean, Micah's got 1 sack, I think, in 4 playoff games. But in the regular season, he's on track to be one of the greatest pass rushers in the last 30, 40 years in his regular season stats. But he's got 1 sack in 4 playoff games.
Yeah.
That's the same. And Dax did with the same thing. Dax, he had his best season ever, finished second in the MVP voting, second team All-Pro. And then when you get to the playoffs, you don't get that big Dak energy. You get small Dak energy. And I think all of the Cowboys are dealing with that the regular season, they seem to peak in the regular season.
Yeah.
And then you get the regression.
Well, and it's just, but it's been that key that we've talked about for years, which is they build up a ton of confidence against lower tier teams and they're able to win the games they're supposed to win a lot of times. And they win those big and they get the confidence up that helps them out, win some other games. And that confidence just disappears in the playoffs when they get to the end of the season and things get a little bit tougher and they go into that first round and the other team comes out with more confidence and more energy and they walk out to it like it's another regular season game and they get punched in the face. And they just haven't been able to respond to that year after year. Is as soon as another team comes out and really throws something hard at them in the playoffs, they got nothing to answer back with. And that's, you can hang out around the rim, but if you're hanging out around the rim with a point guard, your odds are not great that you're going to put the ball back in.
Yeah, it's because it's false confidence in the end, right? Ultimately,
yeah,
it's like you said, it's going up against subpar opponents. When they played, playoff caliber opponents in the regular season, a lot of Cowboys fans were disappointed in their performance. You talked about the holes that are on the roster now. They have some holes they need to address. They addressed some of them in the draft, and I like the Cowboys draft, by the way. But I always like the Cowboys draft. The Cowboys are one of the best drafting teams in the league and one of the most homegrown teams in the league. But running back is clearly one of those issues right now, holes on the roster. They signed Zeke, but Patrick's not a fan of that, and a lot of Cowboys fans feel like that's more of a sentimental move than an actual strategic move to help your team. Here is Stephen Jones when he was asked about the running back position and why it wasn't more of a priority for the Cowboys this offseason.
I did the interview with Derrick Henry, and he's got the house in Dallas, and he said, and he loves being on the Ravens, but he wanted that call from the Cowboys and was interested in going to Dallas and talking through it. So take us through that process, and why was there no telephone call to Derrick Henry? Were you guys not interested? What was the evaluation on the player? Why no telephone call to Derrick Henry?
Well, first of all, nothing but respect for Derrick Henry. I mean, he's one of the top backs in this league. He's had one of the great careers in this league. I wish him nothing but the best with the Ravens. Sure, a great place for him. Our situation is just, and no one ever wants to say it, but it's salary cap. And we just didn't, have the money to allocate to that position, in terms of where we were from a cap standpoint, knowing what we're looking at with Dak and certainly Micah and CeeDee Lamb. We just didn't have those type of resources to allocate that position, or we probably would have already had it filled with Tony Pollard. We hated to lose Tony Pollard. We had to lose Zeke the year before from a cap standpoint, and we just didn't have the dollars to allocate to the running back position, and certainly looking to do it in a more efficient way in terms of how it complements the rest of our offensive roster.
I know, and I don't disagree with that, but that's why everybody thought they draft one in the last 2 drafts. They drafted one right 2 years ago, and they draft one this year, and it didn't happen. And that's why you pursue a running back in the draft, because you don't have necessarily the salary cap room to pay one on the free agent market, and the Cowboys didn't do that either. So I don't really understand that thought process, Patrick. I don't get that.
No,
if you can't pay them salary cap wise, you draft them.
It's a Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones when they say, well, here's one of the reasons why we didn't. We go, okay, we get that. You have to find another way, though.
You can't.
That's not okay. That, well, my car broke down, so I didn't go into work. Well, then you're fired. You can't keep your job then. Well, no, but my car broke down. Okay, but you still have to figure out a way to do your job. It doesn't matter. I know it sucks, but there's a problem. You have to solve it. So to say, well, we didn't have salary cap space, so I guess we just suck now. That's not an answer.
That's not how you solve the problem.
We got to figure out a way to make it more effective. So just throw the ball every play? Is that what you're going to do? Because that doesn't also feel like a way to win a Super Bowl.
Or trade for one. You can trade or draft for one. There are other ways. Like you said, you can't pay one on free agent market. Did
that at all sound like he was trying to get another running back?
No.
He said we have to find other ways to make it work in our offense.
Yeah.
That does not feel like they are looking for a running back. No, and that's every report I've seen of somebody trying to report that the Cowboys are interested in a running back, trading for one. I've immediately seen shot down by Cowboys people and or like people that cover the Cowboys. So I don't know what it feels as if they're okay going into the season with this, or at least going into training camp with this. But those answers are always frustrating because your job is to fix the problems. Your job is to solve problems. And when you just say, problem we can't solve there, every other team is finding out how to do this. Every other team has to deal with the same thing you have to deal with, and they're all figuring it out.
I just don't. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand that thought process. Once again, if they go into training camp with the running backs they have, their hope, this is where hope is a strategy for the Cowboys, and it never should be, is that teams are going to cut running backs, and then one of the guys that's cut around the league when they trim down the rosters to their final rosters will be someone that's attracted to the Cowboys. And they probably will be. I'm not saying it won't be, but that's still hope being a strategy.
But that's it's also the problem, which is, well, we have 5 RB2s. That's better than an RB1. You go, no, it's not. You still need an RB1. You need a left tackle one. You need a right tackle one. You need a wide receiver one. Like, you have to have, it doesn't matter how many mediocre players you can add. It doesn't equal one great player or one good player. And that's the problem, is they keep trying to piece together, well, we have 5 guys who are pretty good. That's not okay, but that's not enough. You have to get great players and then coach up those great players, because again, we're not talking about winning 12 games anymore. You've done it. And if that's not if that's all you want to do, then come out and say, we're okay winning 12 games. We want to be the most valuable franchise. That's fine. Super Bowls, maybe if we get lucky and everybody else gets hurt, we'll get into one. If we stay healthy and everybody else gets hurt, we'll get into one. Maybe the cards fall our way one year. But that's not what they say, but that's how they manage this team. And that's why it's frustrating covering them, because every time they say, well, we're trying to win a Super Bowl, say, but you're not doing anything to win a Super Bowl. You're doing everything to be a 12-win team.
Yeah,
which is fine.
You can't even pay attention to what the Cowboys say anymore. They're like politicians. You really have to watch the policy and the actions. That's what will tell you everything you know about Cowboys. And the policy and actions, as you just pointed out, they would frustrate you if you're a Cowboys fan, because they say essentially that you are happy with the status quo of just being a team that can win a lot of regular season games, and in the postseason you have very little to no postseason success. Here's a mark that always troubles me, because I know we're getting close to it, and we'll push Roger right to the next segment. But if you go look at it, the Cowboys 0-7 mark in divisional round games since they won their last Super Bowl. Since their last Super Bowl, the Cowboys have yet to return to an NFC title game, and they have an 0-7 mark in the divisional round. Crazy. Like that is the ultimate. So that is what's keeping the Cowboys right now from being taken seriously.
Yeah.
I won't take it's hard to take the Cowboys seriously when, as Patrick mentioned, what they say does not necessarily align with their actions and what they do as a front office. So we'll see what the Cowboys figure out. But right now, I'm not confident if I'm a Cowboys fan that they will be able to get over the hump, which is
and I'll throw this in there, which is crazy, but I'll throw this in. It's not even that I'm not confident that they'll not do it, because that's fine. If this is what you're going to do, and you're saying we can't invest this because we have to blow up the team because our window's closed, and we know our window's closed, and it's time to restart and try and keep some of your own guys around, but kind of move on from Dak, move on, but I'm fine with that too, because teams have to do that at points, and you want to, expedite your rebuild, and I get that. But if you're going to do that, then do that. And to do that, you can't let CeeDee Lamb walk in free agency. You can't let, you don't want to let all your best players walk in free agency. You want to be able to trade some of them off and get draft picks back so you can expedite your rebuild. That's where I'm fine with if you want to rebuild because you don't feel you can get over that hump. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But I need you to at least make efforts to keep a CeeDee Lamb around so that you can trade him if you are rebuilding. But you can't just let a guy that's that young and that talented and, a top 5 receiver in the league right now walk because you're rebuilding. That's just not an acceptable thing to do.
I have no idea what the Cowboys are doing, and I think the troubling part is I'm not sure they know what they're doing either. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day on the other side. We'll hear from Brian Kelly. He's got LSU fans riled up because he's setting a NIL culture there that not everybody agrees with. We'll talk about that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Horn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, I was actually listening to some sports radio, and I saw this, I heard this clip, and I went looking for it of Brian Kelly, the head coach of LSU. Now, remember, LSU was in the running for Dominique Williams because Bo Davis is there now, former D-line coach at Texas. They were in the running for Dominique Williams, who ended up committing to Oklahoma. The freshman All-American from TCU. Texas was one of the final two schools, or final four schools, but I think they were one of the two front runners in acquiring Dominique Williams via the transfer portal, the spectacular, stellar D tackle. The rumor on the street was that he wanted a ridiculous amount of money via NIL opportunities and via NIL deals. Some were even rumored to be seven figures, like big, huge numbers we're talking about here. And 104.5 in Baton Rouge, actually, there was a podcast I was listening to where they brought up those very same rumors. Jeff Ketchum brought it up here at Orange Blood, saying that he thought that he heard it was a seven-figure deal that he wanted, that Dominique Williams wanted, and they reiterated that on that radio station 104.5 in Baton Rouge I was listening to. So I think that's where this comes up. This just so you know, that's the background, I believe, the context for this Brian Kelly comment, because he's talking about D linemen here. So here is Brian Kelly, and this is, it said, the comments that got LSU fans a little riled up because he's trying to set an NIL culture and he doesn't want to get out of control. And he's giving his stance about what he terms as buying players. So here's Brian Kelly, the LSU head football coach.
So the D line, interior D lineman, where are you right now with that?
Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because, we're selling something a little bit differently. And that is, we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players. And unfortunately, right now, that's what some guys are looking for. They want to be bought. And look, I understand NIL is part of this, and we have an incredible collective. We have very, very generous opportunities around the greater Baton Rouge area for NIL opportunities. So they are here. But we're not going to go out and buy players. That's not what this is about. This was never about that. We will develop you. We will get you ready for the next step, as we did with Jaden Daniels, as we did with Malik Neighbors, as we did with Brian Thomas. We developed 3 defensive linemen that all got drafted this year, and we'll do that again. But if you're just looking to get paid, you're looking in the wrong place. If you like all the things that we do here in developing our players, bringing you into a championship program, playing in front of the best fan base in America, playing for championships, and having an opportunity for NIL, you should be a Tiger. But if you just want to get, paid, this is not the place for you.
Okay, so there are some LSU fans that got riled up. Was like, what do you mean? So he's not going to compete in the NIL space? That's not what he's saying at all. What he's basically saying is we're not going to be the highest bidder every time. We can't afford to do that. We're not going to do it. He believes it sets a bad precedent, and it's a bad NIL culture. You have to have an NIL culture. You have to. Because NIL is that's the new law of the land. But you have to have a culture where it's not always just about the money and the whatever you're going to get from the NIL endorsements. I just saw Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze said something very similar when he was asked about getting a quarterback, right? And getting a quarterback via the transfer portal, which costs you a lot of money. Remember, we know on the record now from multiple sources how much it costs to get a big time player via the transfer portal, because Jason Day said Ryan Day said the quiet part out loud, the Ohio State head coach. And remember, Matt Rule also said the quiet part out loud at one point too, because remember, Ryan Day reportedly told boosters and donors that he needed $13 million to make sure the Buckeyes roster was an elite roster. And he said it required about, getting a top quarterback would cost you about $2 million. Getting a top edge rusher or offensive tackle costs you about $1 million. Those were the numbers that Ryan Day threw out there. And remember, Matt Rule, he said something similar when Matt Rule said basically a good quarterback in the portal costs 1.5 or 2 million. Let's make sure we all understand what's happening. There are some teams that have $6 to $7 million players playing for them. That was Matt Rule before he, they obviously, he has his own NIL culture too. We know Nebraska has an NIL culture. Hell, Texas, actually, Casey Thompson. Remember, he said that he thought Nebraska's NIL opportunities were better than the NIL opportunities here at Texas.
Parking lot looked better in Nebraska.
Parking lot looked better in Nebraska, right? So they can't act like they're not, promoting NIL and they're not compensating players in NIL. They are, but they're just trying to build a positive culture around it. The Auburn head coach, Hugh Freeze, said this because he was asked about, hey, why don't you go get a big-time quarterback via the transfer portal? He said the options that you're presented with, develop Peyton. Peyton's the quarterback he's got on campus now. He said develop Peyton, develop Holden, develop Hank, develop Walker, or go spend $1 million on this guy. I just couldn't bring myself to doing that because I wanted to put all the pieces together. And so he's basically saying like, hey, man, I could have went out and spent $1 million, but nah, we're going to spend that money elsewhere. And also think about guys, that's your salary cap now. You got boosters and donors on your campus that are like, listen, man, all right, we're gonna make sure we pull these resources from the collectives and the directives together to make sure you got, I don't know, $8-9 million at your disposal through NIL opportunities and NIL deals. All right. Now, as a coach, as a GM, which, by the way, Texas has a GM now, Ole Miss has a GM now, you can distribute the resources however and allocate the resources however you believe is best for the team to construct the roster. But it's hard to get more of that. Now, you can go back to the boosters and donors and the collectives and directors and say, hey, I need another $1 million for this one player. But I'm sure when somebody says you got to explain, like, so hold on, you spend $2 million on one dude? He better be, is he really good? He's just be really, really good, isn't he? And so these are some of the conversations happening behind the scenes because now these coaches, they're so frustrated. They're saying the quiet part out loud. Boise State head football coach just recently got in trouble because he said something that might have violated antitrust laws. He said recently, or at least he stated to the media, that incoming freshmen are not eligible to make NIL money during their first year in the program. He told the media that. Firestorm. People lost their damn mind. It was quickly clarified that Spencer Danielson is his name, the head coach, wasn't putting a strict embargo in place on freshmen earning NIL deals, but that the program would not be promising or offering NIL deals to recruits or first-year players. And it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily wise either, right? Because first-year players, guys coming in the portal. But what he's worried about is the culture on the team of guys who have been here, 1, 2, 3 years, put in the work, who are not getting paid big time NIL money, and that you got a guy coming in the transfer portal who just got there 1 year, and then he's already the highest paid player via NIL on the team. Even Brian Kelly brought that up and said that's bad for the culture in the locker room, because guys feel like that they haven't been fairly compensated or that they're not appreciated because you're paying some newcomer more than you paid the guys who have been the heart and soul of the program, been bleeding for the program there for 3 and 4 years. Oh, it's setting the NIL culture. It's really, really, in my opinion, it's tough these days, tougher than ever. I compare it to raising kids. Raising kids is tougher than ever because of social media. I think building a positive football culture tougher than it's ever been, and it's because of NIL and the transfer portal. It's hard to keep those guys around, hard to de-recruit them. You got to re-recruit them every year, and everybody wants to earn their fair market value. There were plenty of rumors on campus at Texas of players deciding, hey, man, I might test the waters here, and then Texas having to renegotiate the NIL deals and up their NIL deals, right? Malik Murphy, I think, performed well at the spring game, so he wouldn't transfer. There were rumors like Xavier Worthy may have been unhappy at one point, and then maybe another bag there. All right, of NIL money. So I'm just saying, it happens everywhere. But you as a coach got to figure out exactly what works for your specific NIL culture. Because there's a great saying, but I think it applies to NIL. Every great cause begins as a movement, becomes a business, and degenerates into a racket. We're getting close to the racket phase of NIL rapidly, going from being a movement to a business, and now it's on racket. I think these coaches are trying to they are trying their best to keep that from that toxicity from infiltrating their locker rooms. And for Sark's doing a really good job of it, because I think what they're saying is, guys, you're going to get money. You're going to get compensated for transferring to this university, or you're going to get compensated NIL money. What I think the coaches are trying to avoid, all these coaches in their own way, is that they don't want to be the highest bidder every time. Yeah. And don't be using me to negotiate with other schools about, hey, this other school offered 350 G's. If you offer me 400 G's, coach, I think I'll come there. They're trying to avoid that and say, listen, you'll get your $150,000 or $200,000 deal, but we don't want to negotiate. We don't want to go back and forth, and we're not trying to be the highest bidder. And it goes back to me, if you're Texas, it goes back, and probably every university, that I compare it to the old JFK quote, right? It's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You want to find players who come to Texas to play for Texas. They don't come to play at Texas. The guys who come to play at Texas, they want to know what the university can do for them. Hey man, what's up with my NIL? How many network can y'all hook me up with? Can y'all get me some tickets to the ACL and to South by Southwest? They want to know what the brand can do for them. But what you want to do is make sure you're recruiting guys who want to do as much as they can for the brand. Your Rojos, your Jay Witch. You want to make sure you have enough of those guys, more of the for Texas guys on your roster than the at Texas guys on your roster. And if you can do that, you'll be okay. But you're going to get in trouble when you have more at Texas guys than for Texas guys. Right now, Texas has a ton of for Texas. I would say 85% of that roster are for Texas guys. And Patrick, that's why Sark is so big on recruiting high school players from good football coaches in high school who are from a championship level programs from good pedigree, because he believes they have already weeded out the bad character, the bad football character for players like that.
Yeah, no, and I'm right with you on all of that. And I think too, when you talk about the coaches not wanting to be in negotiations, the fact that you can't really discuss any of this stuff openly is a part that they don't want to get involved in the world of, well, they offer me 350. And you go, well, did they? Or is this, or is his agent, who is 23 years old, the one lying to my face and telling me they offered 350? And I know I can call up Lane Kiffin and go, what'd you offer him? He goes, 150. He goes, he's told me 350.
That's true. Good for
And so
right.
I think there's that part where they're like, and we know these managers and agents we hear a lot of times are their friends, and they're managing them poorly and giving them a bad reputation. I will add, for Brian Kelly, you need to find a different way to say it. The way you said it was wrong, because it's really rich when a guy who makes $9.5 million a year off college football says that players should not make anywhere close to what he makes to play college football. And hey, well, if you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the quarterback will draw 1 million more people to watch than I ever will as a coach, you deserve a fraction of what I make. That's where it's rich, where I agree you cannot have the culture. Everything you just said, Rod, is 100% true, but you got to find better ways to fight it other than just complaining about it, because the more you complain, the worse it's going to get. And while you're making close to $10 million a year, complaining about guys making several hundred thousand, never going to go over well in the court of public opinion. Because, hey, how about this? We need another $1 million? How about we take it off your salary? Because you know who's paying your money? The boosters too.
Yes, they are.
So if we're saying that's NIL money, we can take it straight off your salary. If you can't afford this guy, we can. We'd rather have him than you.
That's a great point, Patrick. Actually reminds me, I gotta find what athletic director was. I'll find the quote after we get to the break here. But he said that he's talking to boosters and donors, and basically they're discussing stop the contributions by boosters and donors to facilities upgrades, and just have them focus on NIL. It's like, man, because he's like, the players aren't here long enough to enjoy the facilities anyway, and they don't really give a damn at this point. He said they care more about how much am I getting paid, rather than look at your brand new locker here, look at the TV screen in your locker, look at all these beautiful amenities. They don't care about that as much anymore. He said what they care about is how much money they're getting in NIL. He said so he's kind of shifted his boosters and donors to focus more on NIL than on donating to facilities, because most universities have they only have so many sugar daddies and sugar mamas that are going to be donating directives and collectives. UT has, just an infinite a number, but most schools, they only got a few, and they want to make sure, listen, I want you focusing on this and not that, whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Good stuff there. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some what the facts, what the stats here. Got a couple of stats I want to share. One's baseball related. This comes from my man Nash at Nash Talks Texas. Texas baseball sits at 99 homers as a team, 99 home runs as a team. That's ranked 7th nationally, just one home run away from the second triple-digit home run season in Texas baseball history. The school record is 128 homers in 2022, and the Longhorns. I mean, they've been all about the long ball this year. So there you go. The Longhorns one home run away from a triple digits from hitting 100 home runs on the season. That has not been the issue for the Longhorns, as we know this season. The pitching has been the big issue for the Longhorns. How about this? Another what the facts, what the stats? The Falcons. You know how much money the Falcons are going to pay 3 quarterbacks in 2024?
How much?
79.2 million. Kirk Cousins gets 62 in terms of guaranteed salary and guaranteed money and the salary they paid him. And Michael Penix, if you look at the guaranteed money he's going to make and the salary, 14.2 million. And then Taylor Heineke, if you look at all that, 2.5 million. So according to Spot Track, $79.2 million spent on the QB position for the Falcons in 2024 will be.
Yikes.
Yeah. Hey, man, investment in the future. Invest in the future, man. Hey, that's what they're about. Like I said, I don't think GM will be around to even see Michael Penix be a perennial starter for him on the franchise quarterback. But hey, man, they're trying to invest in the extreme Green Bay model. All right, they're just kind of doing it a little bit different, very extreme. Yes, it's not quite Green Bay. In Green Bay, when Green Bay drafted quarterbacks early, like an Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, those were late first round picks. So essentially, you can make the calculation that they basically are kind of second round picks in the end. Because remember, most teams don't have 32 first round picks, first round grades. They have like 20, or some teams have like 19 or whatever. So when they were drafting those quarterbacks, a lot of teams like the Texans, they'll trade out of those late first round picks because they don't necessarily have that many first round grades. So a little bit different when you drop the guy in the top 10 as a succession plan at the quarterback position. All right, there you go. So what the facts with the stats. We come back, we'll talk NBA game last night, talk about a dramatic finish to the game last night. Knicks win and go up 2-0 in the series. We'll talk about that. Jalen Brunson giving a lot of Knicks fans some nostalgia about something that actually was celebrated last night in Madison Square Garden. So we'll get to that. We'll also hear from we'll also get into some. I hear from Joe Klatt when we go behind the burners curtain. Joe Klatt's really high on the Longhorns. We'll hear his thoughts about what he thinks for the Longhorns in the 2024 season. We'll also dive into some other discussion about the NBA and Jokic and his legacy, winning his 3rd MVP. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast when we return, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, and Patrick Davis is the Idealionaire, and he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. And on Thursday, it is a new theme Thursday, a new theme every Thursday. And today's theme, of course, dedicated to all the moms out there, a Mother's Day tribute. So all the songs reference the moms are as a tribute to the mothers out there. And what is this? What is this? What's
Mama
the name
told
of
me
this
not
song?
to come.
Mama told me not to come. All right, there you go. All right, there you go. Patrick always working hard for you. I didn't even know there were that many songs referencing Mama, but I imagine there are a lot more than
There's
we
a lot.
realize.
We've
There's a lot.
apparently been told on the text sign that "Mama" by Boys to Men is a great one. I do not even know that song. I'm about to listen to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I think Tupac's "Dear Mama" is better than
Yeah, they
Boyz
were
II Men
arguing
Mama,
that.
but yes,
that was better. I always have issues with Boys to Men of tribute, like certain songs they have that are about one person, because it's weird to have a group of 4 guys singing about one person like it's a singular person when it must be 4 different people.
yeah, it's true.
It's weirder with love songs. It's weirder with love songs when
Yes,
when they're all
weird.
singing about a love of their life that's maybe the same person.
Only you would think of it like that, actually. But I've never thought about it. You're right. That is outside the box way to look at it. Only you would think of it like that. But I like Dear Mama better than I like Boys to Men Mama. It's a little, yeah. I don't know. And my mom probably would like Boys to Men Mama more than the Tupac one, I guess. But that's what the Thursday theme is all about. It's all about dedicating songs to mom. And as Patrick mentioned, a whole lot more songs about mom than you realize. So we appreciate him working hard for us. We appreciate him also because of the topics he brings up in the Big Fat Poll of the Day. Patrick, let the people know what the Big Fat Poll of the Day is all about today.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today. Which NBA team has the best shot to come back and win their series? That is, there's only 4 you can pick from, which makes it nice and easy. So far, Cavs still not getting a vote. Still not a vote for the Cavs. Pacers, I'm surprised, are run by Nuggets actually winning it right now. People, I don't think they've watched the first 2 games of that series.
No, they haven't. I don't know how. Yeah, because I don't feel good about the Nuggets coming back and winning that game, winning that series.
Like, I get it. Jokic is great, but the way Jamal Murray has been flustered, I don't know if he's the guy to come back in this and dominate. And like, I just don't know. Going on the road to Minnesota, you have to win 2 in Minnesota pretty much.
And they get Rudy Gobert back. I mean,
yeah,
right?
I mean, but even
in game 2.
But even with Rudy, you say it's just you have to play so much better than you played in those first 2 games. And it wasn't like it was you guys just having an off night. They knew how to stop you. So maybe they'll make the adjustments. Maybe things will go back. But I don't know. That one, that's not where I would put my number 1.
And they've been off all, but they've been off all postseason. Remember, against the Lakers, they weren't playing great against the Lakers.
They weren't.
The Lakers led most of that series. They would just out clutch the Lakers in clutch time in the fourth quarter. They would outplay them. And I don't know. I feel like Denver has trailed by double digits in 6 of their 7 playoff games. And by 9 in the other. So, I mean, they haven't been playing their best basketball either this postseason. And now you're dealing with a team like the T-Wolves, who they're playing probably the best of any team, them and the Celtics, of any team in the postseason so far. And they're 6-0. So, yeah, I don't know how people feel that confident in the Nuggets, but we'll see. We'll never underestimate the heart of a champion. Isn't that what Rudy T said?
Yes.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what that heart of a champion is all about, because we haven't seen them deal with this type of adversity since they became a champion.
Yeah,
we haven't seen it, and they look like they were unraveling in the face of that adversity in game 2. The coach, Jamal Murray, like you said, it was like nobody could handle it, and we'll see how they handle it in game 3. And like I said, I can't wait. That game 3 is gonna feel like a game 7.
Yeah,
if you're
in Minnesota and they're going nuts because they can go up 3-0 against the Nuggets right now, and understand that pretty much gives them a pass to the Western Conference Finals, and unless you completely break down. But that is, I think that crowd's gonna be going nuts. And anytime Jamal Murray falls down and complains, they're gonna let him hear it. And every time Michael Malone goes, and when you're already in your own head, and then the crowd, you just have thousands of people mocking you.
Yeah. He hasn't dealt with that, right? In his career. He didn't have to deal
I
with
mean,
that
not
kind of
not at
stuff.
the level it's going to be at.
No way. So and coming, it's a lot of pressure on him, a lot of eyes on him after what he did in game 2 with the heating pad and him being petulant and throwing temper tantrums and stuff like that. So I will see how composed that Denver Nuggets team can be on the road in just a raucous. It is just going to be a hostile environment to say the least. Like I said, last time Minnesota had a game that meant this much in Minnesota, and it had to be going back to KG time.
I mean, a team that you felt this good about, like that you really felt this could be a championship team
that can make a run. Yeah, exactly.
Because they've had some decent teams, but I don't know if they ever felt like they were championship teams that this could go all the way like you can now with Anthony Edwards. That gives you a guy that you believe, okay, now we have a guy. We have Karl Anthony Towns, and he can play great, but he can be a number 2 now. And now we have our guy in Anthony Edwards. And then we have this defense that's top notch, and there's just enough pieces now.
Just weird to think of Minnesota as being potentially a championship contender.
It is, but so it's weird to think about Denver 3 years ago being a championship contender because Denver was never that team. That.
Yeah, they were never that team, and Minnesota's never. But that's good for the NBA. The new blood is good for the NBA. Yeah. It is. It's good overall,
and it's good for smaller market teams to continue to play well in the draft matter and the rules that they made in the CBA that basically allowed that supermax rule and the stuff that allows teams to keep players a little bit more. All of that's worked out well for smaller market teams. So there is more parity in the NBA than there's been in a long time, because it used to be if you can make the same money in Minnesota or New York, you're going to New York. If you can make the same amount of money in Denver or LA, you're going to LA. And,
which I still think is happening with the free agents, but like you said, now you can build better. Smaller market
but
team.
If you're now in Denver, if Jokic is in Denver, he's going to lose money to go to LA because they can pay him more to stay in Denver. So it gives you that little added bonus to stay. Yep. Plus, you're able to build a little bit easier. There's just added benefits to what the new CBA did to bring a little bit more parity to the league. They're basically the reverse of MLB. Where MLB, the small market teams are like, we don't care. We just want to exist so we can take the money.
Well, they just develop. They're developmental leagues for the Yankees and the big money teams and the Dodgers.
But like small market, like Pittsburgh is a perfect example of a team in Major League Baseball who's okay being bad and their ownership's okay just taking the money. Like they're never going to spend big. They're just kind of okay with their lot in life. But because they're okay with the Yankees spending all this money, because then they get the luxury tax money and that gets spread out between their teams. So they make more. The owners make more. There's more owners like that in MLB that are just fine being mediocre teams.
Yeah. Cheap billionaires who really don't care about the competitive level of the team. As long as it's an ATM, they're cool with it. As long as it's a cash cow, they're cool with it. And it is. All right, good stuff there. We'll get back to some discussion actually about that, because Rick Carlisle made a comment. Actually about small market teams. He's upset about some of the officiating in that series versus the Knicks. So we'll hear from Rick Carlisle and get back to that conversation, at least that references that conversation. We'll review the game last night. Knicks now up 2-0 on the Pacers. We'll talk about that. Also talk about Jokic and his legacy, winning his 3rd MVP in the NBA. That makes him the 9th player to win 3 or more MVPs. We'll talk about the rarefied air that he finds himself in now. Before we do any of that, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Number 1 ranked Texas softball begins their postseason with a matchup against Texas Tech in the second round of the Big 12 tournament today. Texas beat the Red Raiders by run rule in all 3 of the final games of the regular season. After winning their first regular season conference title since 2010, the Longhorns are now seeking their first sweep of Big 12 titles since 2003. In the NBA, the Knicks came up clutch in the fourth quarter again to top the Pacers 130-121. The Knicks, who have already dealt with a rash of injuries, had more bad news with OG Anunoby leaving the game with a hamstring injury and Jalen Brunson missing a chunk of the first half dealing with a foot injury before returning to score 24 in the second half. Tonight, the Cavaliers look for an answer to the Celtics, and the Mavericks try to steal one in OKC. In other NBA news, Nikola Jokic was named the NBA MVP, winning his 3rd MVP award, becoming the 9th player in NBA history to do so. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic also received first-place votes. In Major League Baseball, the Astros dropped a 6th straight game to the Yankees 9-4. We'll try to salvage a game with Roniel Blanco on the mound, who is 3-0 so far this season. And the Rangers bounced back after losing the first game of their doubleheader to the A's yesterday to get a hard-fought 12-11 win in the second game to win the series. They will now have a day off before heading to Colorado to face the Rockies. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you for the Horn headlines. We appreciate those, Patrick. Yeah, last night the Knicks pull out the win 130-121 over the Pacers. They now are up 2-0 in that series. And like I said, you couldn't have written this better as a script. The Knicks paid tribute last night to Willis Reed and his, memorable, iconic reemergence, if you will, having the injury in the Game 7 of the 1970 NBA Finals. Willis Reed gets injured, famously comes back, and is able to lead the Knicks to a win in their first title. Well, on the anniversary of that dramatic event for the Knicks, where they actually paid tribute to Reed, and actually during the first quarter, I believe his number 19 jersey hanging in the rafters was spotlighted, and they had an event. I had Walt Frazier came out onto the court, and they actually paid tribute to that team and that moment. You had Jalen Brunson. Now, it wasn't as dramatic as a Game 7, but you had Jalen Brunson do something similar where he left the game to go to the locker room. He had an injured leg, and that was in the first half. Everybody thought, oh, man, he might be out for the game. Then he returns for the second half, scores 24 of his 29 points in the final 2 quarters of the game to help lead the Knicks to a win after the Knicks were down double digits, actually, had a double-digit deficit after he left, and end up coming back all the way to win. That is, like I said, it ain't quite Willis Reed, Patrick, but that is as dramatic as it gets, and it shows you the value of Jalen Brunson now to that organization. He's been phenomenal so far these playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one that you watch in the first half, and you go, well, that 40-point streak that he had 4 straight games and got into rarefied air, he goes down with the injury, and you go, well, that's over, and then he even comes back. You still think it's over. He still has 29 points in the game. He still does really well in that second half. And it's just, this Knicks team has been playing. It feels like there's something in the water. You know what I mean? That this team is being able to play like this for 4 quarters. This team is being able to play and save up energy. And, Josh Hart's playing the entire game pretty much and still having energy to be a factor in the second half. DiVincenzo feels like he's lights out in the second half, at least in the last 6 minutes of the game. He feels pretty lights out at this point. Jalen Brunson is just being one of the clutch, and it's really that it's this heart and soul of the team that they just feel like they believe that they're the plucky underdogs in this. They all believe that they've been overlooked and undervalued, and they're really coming out playing like that. And you look at it in the long run, and it feels like they're going to hit their match in the Celtics. But right now, they're playing such good basketball in the fourth quarter. And to have him come back, you hope that the injury was, it's not anything super major, that he's going to be able to play in the next game as well. We know OG Anunoby is now hurt, so your starting center is out with Mitchell Robinson. Your starting power forward's out with Julius Randle, and now Anunoby could be out as well at small forward. I mean, that's a lot to deal with, but they've just been continuing to play well because it's really that the Nova Knicks, the Villanova kids, and DiVincenzo and Hart and Brunson are just playing top-notch basketball, and especially when it matters the most in the fourth quarter. They're going for rebounds. Hartenstein's been really good, hustling under the basket, getting those rebounds at the end of games. He's stepped up big, but Tom Thibodeau just has them ready to go in the fourth quarter, and it's something that Indiana's got to figure out a way to bring that energy and match that energy late in games if they want to have any shot.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Clutch time, they've been amazing. In clutch time, the Knicks have been, and Jalen Brunson has been the superstar for them. There's no doubt. But you're right, man. DiVincenzo, I believe he had 28. So he stepped up and was big for him. You talked about Josh Hart. Josh Hart has played more minutes in this series than any of the Knicks players. He's been and he's filling up the stat sheet every time. 19 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists in that matchup too. So the Knicks, I don't know if that's a team of destiny. That might be the wrong term because they got to face the Celtics. But with all the injuries they've had and still being able to perform like this in the clutch and win games, it's got to be interesting to see, them. Hopefully the Pacers come back and make it interesting. But right now, the Knicks do feel like a team. Like I said, not of destiny. They do feel like a team that's riding a wave of momentum.
Yeah.
And it's right now, it's obviously overwhelming the Pacers. But Tyrese Halliburton, that the hope for the Pacers is that Tyrese Halliburton played well. And if he plays well, they got a shot, and they had a shot to win game 1. If Tyrese Halliburton didn't have a terrible game 1, which he did, I think he had what was it, like 6 points or something like that?
Yeah, he had a terrible game 1, and then Miles Turner had a really bad game 2. Pascal Siakam didn't do well in game 2. So your 3 guys that you're really relying a lot on have not performed well as a trio pretty much this entire playoffs. And so if they do that, when you've been in these 2 games of the Knicks, plus you're going home, you can easily win the next 2 games if you step it up and play at that higher level. But yeah, the fact that Halliburton got his shot going, which has just not been going, really the same throughout the end of the season. If he can keep that momentum going back to Indiana, and he shoots close to that from 3, it changes the series dramatically. That was one of the reasons they pulled ahead in the second quarter. When it went to the second half, though, it felt like they took their foot off the brake, or took their foot off the gas. And that's when you saw Brunson come back in and be able to make that run back to get him back in the game. And it felt like they thought Brunson was going to be out. They were going to be coasting in the second half. And this is our game now. We finally broke him down, and they just did not come out with any energy in the second half. And that really kind of, that's something that you cannot do if you're trying to be a team that's going to do things in the playoffs. You have to have that energy in the fourth quarter. Because we saw that, we talked about earlier with Denver and the Lakers. The Lakers just couldn't turn it on in the fourth quarter, and they were so spent before they got there. And that's what you say is the Knicks right now look like a fresh team in the last 6 minutes. And that's really, really hard to do. The Pacers got to find a way. They have a better bench depth. If you got to play those guys a little bit more to stay in the game so that you don't have these runs where the Pacers would get it back into within 1 or 2, and then all of a sudden the Knicks go on a run real quick and push it back out to 7 or 8. And you just can't have those at the end of the game because you have to keep fighting back into it. So if you have to rest your guys a little bit more early to keep them fresh for that last 6 minutes, but that's really been the Knicks game for the last, the entire playoffs has been the last 6 minutes. And for the Pacers, they need to find a way to match that.
And it's weird because the Knicks have a lot of injuries that have affected their bench, right?
They have almost no bench. They're completely spread. That's what they asked Josh Hart after the game about OG's injury, and if he couldn't go for game 3, what they would do. And he goes, "I don't care. I'll play the entire game." He's like, "I've been playing the entire game. I'll keep playing the entire game. What do you want me? What do you want from me? I'm going to keep playing the entire game."
And he's playing well. Like, he plays the entire game, but plays really, really well. No, Josh Hart's been. You're right, man. He's been great. DiVincenzo's been great. They're the rest of the supporting cast from the starting lineup, because their bench has been decimated with injuries. They have been fantastic. They have been as good as any supporting cast around a star in the playoffs of any group. You can make that argument. Rick Carlisle's making an argument. His argument is about the officiating here, Patrick, and you pointed this out earlier, that the trend is with some of these games with the Knicks that there's too much talk about the officiating, too much talk about the officiating, too much talk about calls and bad calls. I don't know when you want to cut this off. It's a little lengthy, but I thought it was pretty good. And Rick Carlisle, who was ejected in that game, and because he was upset about some of the officiating. Here's Rick Carlisle in the post game talking about the officiating and what he believes has been very poor officiating.
After game 1, we always go through the film, and games where it felt like the whistles weren't balanced, and we pull the clips, and there's a way you can submit them to the MDA office. In the playoffs, when you submit things, the other team sees what you submit, and so there were 29 plays in game 1 that we thought were clearly called the wrong way. I decided not to submit them because I just felt like, we get a more balanced whistle tonight. It didn't feel that way. Couple examples, 5:08 of the third. The whole world knows that Halliburton's got a bad back, and Hart comes up and shoves him in the back, and it's all over Twitter right now because a few people have showed it to me. And JB DeRosa is looking right at it. You can see him. He's got vision of the play, and he shoves Ty right in the corner, and there's no whistle, right in the back. And so that was shocking, and there are many others, but I can promise you that we're going to submit these tonight. New York can get ready. They'll see them too. I'm always talking to our guys about not making it about the officials. But we deserve a fair shot, and it's just not, there's not a consistent balance, and that's disappointing. So
there you go.
Carlisle disappointed. He said, basically he's disappointed in the officiating. And I believe one of the comments that I heard him say that their physicality is rewarded and ours is penalized. And suggested a small market team should get a fair shake. So he's upset. He said he's going to send in 78 because he's combining game 1 and game 2. So he's going to send in 78, what he believes were 78 incorrect calls from the first 2 games of the series. 78 of them. Patrick.
Yeah, that's a
lot.
That's a lot, and there were not. I mean, that's too much. But there are plays in it. Yeah, I get. There's plays they miss calls. There's plays where they call it one way, and a lot of this goes into. We've talked about this with the Longhorns. What's your identity? And you're going to get calls based on your identity. And if he wants to have the argument that well, our identity is we're a fast-paced team and we're getting penalized that we're trying to play defense and we can't play it because the refs won't let us. But if you want to make it small market, I don't think it's that as much as you guys don't play defense much, and when you do, you use your hands more. And the more you use your hands, the more fouls you're going to get. And the Knicks have just been. They played Tom Thibodeau defense. They have been this setup team all season long. This is what they're trained to do, and so it's part of it. Is the calls are going to go slightly towards the Knicks for playing more physical because they played that way the entire season. And so I think that the identity of the Knicks is a more physical team. Now, I get Rick Carlisle can be upset that he says, well, we're trying to match their physicality and we're not allowed to. But I think there's points of it where they're not trained as well to do it. That guys like Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner to a point, they go into plays, and when they go in with their bodies, they go in with their bodies with their hands down instead of their hands up. And plays like that, you can make a lot of contact with your body. And if you're watching that as a fan or as a coach, you're going to sit and say, well, that's still contact. He's moving him. It's a penalty. But teams will get away with that more than if you put your hands on somebody. They'll call that a lot more. Now, I'm sure there are points, and if he went through and you went through with a fine-tooth comb, I'm sure you could find probably 50 calls from the last 2 games that the Pacers feel were unfair going their way. But if you go back and the Knicks will send theirs back in, and they'll have 40 plays that they feel were unfair the other way. So it's disappointing. And I get, as a coach, it gets extremely frustrating when you're trying to fight for your side and you keep getting the fouls called and you keep getting them. And especially when it is little things of his hands were down versus his hands were up, even though the hands weren't used and they're not really a factor in the play. It's just where they were. Those get really, really frustrating. But at the same point, if you're the Pacers, you have to know that going in, this is what it is. Make sure you're constantly doing these. What are the things that the Knicks are doing that we're not? Match them, note for note, and then it's harder to get the refs to completely ignore it. I think if the refs will be, a little bit more lenient to the Pacers, and he knows this too, at home. Once you get back to Indiana, the refs will probably be a little bit more lenient for your side. But, I mean, if you want to sit and say that illegal screen was a bad call, yes, it was a foul. Should they have called it in the end of the game? No. So plays like that, I get. Those are crucial plays. You hate to see that. You hate to see the kicked ball call in the game 1. Game 2, that didn't seem as much to me, that it was so one-sided as game 1 was of those late calls. It seemed more of, because I know there was a play late in the game that Josh Hart got an over the back kind of loose ball foul. That was 50-50 ball. You could call it either way, and they gave it to the Pacers. Those kind of calls at the end of the game weren't uneven in one way or the other for me.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. All right, we come back. We'll get into some Longhorn football discussion. There's several lists that have come out post draft about the best steals in the draft, the biggest steals in the draft, day 2, day 3 steals. Also, the players who were drafted in day 3 who could end up being day 1 starters. There's some Longhorns mentioned and referenced, so we'll get to that. Also, we'll hear from Joe Klatt. Joe Klatt is really high on the Longhorns post spring, so we'll talk about Joe Klatt's conversation that he had the other day about the Longhorns. We'll actually play some audio, so you'll hear from Joe Klatt on the other side when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. We know it is spring, and a lot of the the concerns you have during spring are about your yard, right? About how lush and healthy looking your yard is. You want to get rid of all the weeds. It's time to start planting all those vegetables and all the gardens. And this is the perfect time to do it. So you need to head on over to Callahan's General Store and make sure, number one, that you have all of the supplies that you need to make sure that your yard and your garden is in top-notch shape. So first and foremost, you want to head on over there and get all your pre-emergents, get your weed and feed, make sure that you're giving your yard the best possible chance to make sure that it's in golf course condition. Kill all the weeds, kill all the crabgrass, kill all the dandelions, and just make sure you're feeding your yard that rich and healthy soil. They have the soil there at Callahan's General Store. They got the fertilizer there as well. They got the Bermuda seed there in case you want to fill in some of those brown patches with extra grass seed. And also they have the sand there you need. My man Charlie Wilson told you yesterday, now it's the perfect time for you to put down the Bermuda seed on all those dry brown patches, put down some sand, a lot of moisture in the air. That's going to be good for you when you're trying to make sure that your grass is in healthy looking condition, healthy and lush and green. That's exactly what you want. My friends over at Callahan's General Store, they can help you out with that. Also, if you're planting all those seedling vegetables and you need the melons and the peppers and the tomatoes and other plants, they have plenty of variety to choose from there at Callahan's General Store. They also have great pecan trees and great fruit trees there. You can start planting those around your property as well. They have so much there at Callahan's. It is really a one-stop shop for everything having to do with your yard or your lawn or your garden. You can go there and not only get all the supplies you need, but you'll also get the expertise. You'll get the knowledge from the great employees there at Callahan's General Store. They got it all. You know where it is. 501 Bastrop Highway between downtown and the airport. Every day is a great day to make it a Callahan's day. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Couple of items I want to hit here, Texas football related items. We'll hear from Joe Klatt here in just a second on his podcast. He talked about Texas and their 2024 upcoming season in the SEC, first season in the SEC. And he's really high on Texas. He's really high on Quinn Ewers too. And Joe Klatt being a former quarterback himself, his critique analysis of the quarterback position holds a little bit more weight. So we'll hear from Joe Klatt here in just a second. But I want to get to these lists. A couple of them I want to get, a couple from NFL.com and a couple from Pro Football Focus. Now, Pro Football Focus listed their biggest steals of the draft. Day 1 steals, day 2 steals, day 3 steals. Basically, the players they believe had the best value in terms of being drafted, in terms of draft position. And they had 2 Longhorns listed. Now, for the day 2 and day 3 steals, for day 2, their day 2 steal, they had A.D. Mitchell as one of the Longhorns. There's one of the guys. Cooper DeJean is on this list. Jackson Powers Johnson, Johnny Newton, Roman Wilson. But they had A.D. Mitchell among the 5 players listed as the biggest steals from day 2 of the draft by Pro Football Focus, and biggest steals from the NFL draft for day 3. They have J.T. Sanders on here as a day 3 steal in the NFL draft. Both of these I think are accurate. I'll tell you why, because first of all, you're going to look at, let's start with A.D. Mitchell. Matter of fact, we can just refer to the audio we played yesterday of Greg Cosell, NFL Films, does a great job breaking down the film. And he says he spoke with a 30-year veteran NFL coach, 30-year experienced NFL coach on the offensive side of the ball, who said they had A.D. Mitchell graded out higher than Rome Odunze. I didn't have him even graded that high, so that's high praise. That would have him as one of the top 3 best wide receivers in the draft, potentially. And he also said, and this is Greg Cosell in his analysis, he said, based on, make sure I get the quote right because I didn't write it down because it stood out so much to me. He said, I just based on tape, I feel he has the traits and attributes to develop into a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. So he's got the ability in the raw materials. Doesn't mean he's going to do that. And it's up to A.D. Mitchell to be able to reach his ceiling as a player. But they believe he's got that kind of raw ability. And you talk about a guy that was drafted in the 2nd round. So if he's graded out by some scouts as a top 3 receiver in this draft, which was a really deep and talented receiver draft, and Greg Cosell believes he's got the ability to be a top 10 wide receiver in the league, I'd say, yep, Patrick, I agree. That's a steal. That's great value in the draft for the Colts. As a Texans fan, I don't want to hear that. But as a Longhorn fan, it is true. And I think he's going to get a lot of man coverage early on too. And he's amazing, elite at beating man coverage and press coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be his ability if he can, extend plays a little bit in the red zone too. I think could be a really big threat, because if Anthony Richardson just breaks out of that pocket and you watch all the defense just collapse on him, trying to keep him out of the end zone. If AD can just find himself a place, he's really good at finding that space and getting open and catching ball. I mean, that feels tailor-made for a guy like him to just kind of follow the play and, have Anthony Richardson bootleg out. And it's either a touchdown run or a pass to AD Mitchell. And either way, you're probably getting in the end zone.
Yeah, we talked about that with Xavier Worthy a little bit, right? The scramble drill with Mahomes' ability to extend the play and sack avoidance. Well, Anthony Richards, no doubt, he can move around and he's going to extend some plays. You're right. We didn't really get to see the scramble drill with either one of those receivers because that's not really Quinn's skill set. That's not really his strength. But both in the NFL, I'm with you, Patrick. I think both of those receivers, but A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy will both be beneficiaries of their quarterbacks.
And I'm not even some plays that Steichen sets up of just QB boots, where you just set it up where Anthony Richardson's just going to boot out every single time of that play. And if you boot it out to A.D. Mitchell's side and you put a side defenders have to decide who you're going to guard, A.D. Mitchell or Anthony Richardson, and it feels like that's a prime place for you to use an A.D. Mitchell for a team that doesn't necessarily have a great tight end to go do that with in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of tight ends, there was also an article at NFL.com, day 3 picks that could start year 1. Now, remember, I'm on the record for saying I think J.T. Sanders is going to start year 2 for the Carolina Panthers. But he was mentioned in this article of day 3 picks that could start day 1 or start year 1, I think it says, for the Carolina Panthers. And this is why I think they actually may have a point. You go look at the Panthers tight ends, and it's not a great group of tight ends. No disrespect to these guys. JT Sanders shouldn't be intimidated by this group with Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas. And listen to this stat that I found. The tight ends for the Carolina Panthers last season combined for 59 receptions for 561 yards. That was bottom 6. Both of those were bottom 6 among individual tight end rooms in the NFL. No individual tight end gained more than 25 receptions or 200 receiving yards, so they weren't very prolific tight ends. And I think JT Sanders, who's great at contested catches, and I imagine Bryce Young, who hasn't been really accurate as a young quarterback. Hopefully Dave Canales can improve on that, but he's going to be throwing it up to a tight end, which is usually a comfort. That's kind of a safety blanket for a comfort target, if you will, for a quarterback. And he may be throwing it up to him in contested catch situations. JT Sanders is really good in those situations. It makes life really easy on a young quarterback. You don't always have to anticipate and throw that guy open. With JT Sanders, you can just throw it in his general vicinity and he'll go make a play on the football. So I agree. I think JT Sanders, and I love that article, he's a day 3 guy that can start year 1. I got year 2 as a starter, but I can see him starting by the middle of the season.
Yeah, as long as he can run block and pass block, I figure those are going to be important things for him. As we know, Dave Canales, we heard yesterday talking about he wants to run the football. If you want to run the football, JT Sanders is going to have to run block to be able to stay on the field.
Totally agree with you. You're right about that. That's the one thing that can keep him off the field. Yep. You're right. I'm looking at it optimistically, but a guy that had 8-9 reps on the bench, and wasn't an elite blocker in college. That's why I say year 2. That's why I'm throwing out there year 2 instead of year 1.
Yeah, because I think we both agree he's the best receiving tight end on that roster by a long margin.
Not even close. Yeah.
And so if we say just receiving, he's day 1 starter. You'd put him with Bryce Young and say, go figure it out. He's miles ahead of either of the guys receiving. But if you want to run the football, if you're going to send your running back out in routes and not have pass protection, you're probably going to want him to pass protect some too. He's going to be able to block. And if he's 3rd place in blocking and 1st place in receiving, then he's probably not a starter.
See the field.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, still not gonna see the field that much. No, I agree. That's why I'm a year 2 guy. Let him get in the weight room. They'll make sure that he gets his upper body strength up to par, and then they'll teach him better blocking technique. They'll emphasize it more, and he won't have to go to class. He can just focus on football and blocking, and I think that alone will make him a better player. But I agree with you. And Jonathan Brooks is not on any of these lists. He probably should be, though. I did see a report that he's gonna be ready for training camp, guys. He's gonna be ready. I don't know if he's going to be full speed because they may decide they want to bring him along slowly, but he will be ready to start training camp. He's on pace to. And I'll throw this out there. In that office, I had a fantasy nerd come up to me and was like, man, you have no idea. The fantasy world is really excited about Jay Brooks with Dave Canales, because Rachaad White, who was the bell cow running back for the Tampa Bay Bucks when Canales was there, he had 70 targets. As a running back. That was 6th among running backs, those 70 targets. He had 64 receptions. That was 4th among running backs. He was actually 1st in routes out of the backfield among running backs with 451. Now, some people say, what about Christian McCaffrey? Remember, Christian McCaffrey, he motions out a lot. So not always out of the backfield. Sometimes he would just motion out and become a slot wide receiver. So I think that changes up a little bit. So I think they're talking about out of the backfield routes for a running back. He also was 3rd in receiving yards among running backs. So Rachaad White, if Jonathan Brooks is a better running back overall than Rachaad White was, and he's going to be their running back of the future. So if he's going to be ready for the season, and I went and looked up the stats, Jay Brooks was the best best running back executing screens in college football. He's the best screen running back in college football of anybody who had at least 10 screen passes. He had the highest Pro Football Focus grade of those, 93. Rachaad White on screen passes last year, he produced the best numbers of any running back in the NFL on screens. In yards per reception on screen passes, 10.3. Yards after the catch per reception on screen passes, 15.6. So there's something about Dave Canales' system that loves running backs running screens. Jay Brooks is the best running back executing screens in college. Rachaad White under Dave Canales in Tampa, best running back executing screens in the NFL. Jonathan Brooks now with Dave Canales. I think we can all agree they're gonna be great running the screens together. And Dave Canales says he's gonna run the football, but he's also going to use Jay Brooks in a number of different ways. So I want to throw that out there too, because I had a fantasy nerd hit me up and like, hey man, just so you know, invest in Jay Brooks. It's more than just the running of the football. He's going to be a pass threat as well. There's also an article about 10 rookies in the best situations. We've talked about this ad nauseum, so I won't bring it up too much. Xavier Worthy was number 2 on that list, which makes sense because Xavier Worthy, he's in a perfect situation. I'll throw that out there. We all know that. And Byron Murphy was number 9 on the list. There were 10 players, 10 rookies in the best situations, and they had Byron Murphy at number 9 and then Xavier Worthy at number 2. So 2 Longhorns. At least right now, there are 3 Longhorns that are tracking that if things go right, 3, they could have really big rookie campaigns. And actually maybe 4. If you're looking at X-Man, A.D. Mitchell, Jay Brooks or J.T. Sanders, Byron Murphy, maybe about 4 to 5. That's maybe glass half full, but I think you could have some big seasons from some of the Longhorn rookies. All right, let's get to the Joe Klatt comments real quick here. We got time. It's like a minute. So here's Joe Klatt. He was on his podcast talking about the upcoming college football season, and here's his take on the Longhorns in 2024.
Texas is going to be damn good, folks. Quinn Ewers back for his 3rd season as a starter, so he's going to be more developed, I think. And I was there in the spring. Big noon conversation with Steve Sarkisian coming up this summer. I got to see them practice. Quinn Ewers is firmly entrenched as their starting quarterback. I know from the outside, people are going to talk about Arch Manning. Quinn Ewers, in a large sense, is the reason and the epitome of this resurgence back to the top of college football. And I think he's going to have a big year. In fact, I think he's your odds-on favorite for the Heisman Trophy. In a lot of ways, I think he and Carson Beck at Georgia will start the year as kind of that. They have to replenish that wide receiver group through the portal. So Isaiah Bond from Alabama, Matthew Golden from Houston, Silas Bolden from Oregon State, all really good players. 2 5-star young players. Jonte Cook, Ryan Wingo, Baxter is back in the backfield, Jaden Blue. Their offensive line is likely the best offensive line in the country. They were good on defense. Like, Texas is going to be good.
There you go. So he believes Texas is going to be good. If Quinn Ewers is good, Texas is going to be good. A lot of it will come down to how much improvement we see from Quinn Ewers overall. But there's a lot of depth on this Texas team, and Joe Klatt really excited about it. All right, we got to get to the break. When we come back, we'll get to Off the Record on the other side. I got a couple of stories for Off the Record. Some are from the sports world, some from beyond. We'll get into that when we come back. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about my friends over at Apple Leasing. Now, if time is money, my friends at Apple Leasing are in the business of saving you both. They're going to save you time, save you money, and find you tremendous value. Apple Leasing has the ability to put you in any make or model vehicle that you want. The fine folks at Apple Leasing can help you get the price you want, the payment you want on the car that you want. And all it takes from your end is one phone call or one click on Apple Leasing's website, and you'll get a quote on any make or model vehicle that you want. They can even give you an estimate of the value of your trade-in right over the phone. Apple Leasing simple interest easy lease. It makes everything simple and easy for you. It's going to give you more flexibility, which is going to give you more possibilities and options to help you find a vehicle that fits you best, but more importantly, the vehicle that fits your budget best. Everything seems of a price these days, which is why leasing makes more sense than ever. You're only paying for the part of the car you're actually using. So give Apple Leasing a call, 512-346-9977. That's 512-346-9977, or visit appleleasing.com. That's appleleasing.com. All right. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some stories from the sports world and beyond. A little off the record here. Okay, how about this story from off the record? Actually, and it's not really a story, it's just a piece of audio I want to play really quickly, and then we'll get to a story. Anthony Edwards, I'm telling you, man, this guy's a star. He has a really good personality, and he's just genuine. And like I said, I think he's entertaining on the court. Of course, his skill set is entertaining, but even off the court, like we played funny clips from him yesterday, an interview that he had about how he could play any sport. He's just a great athlete. And here's another clip. This is a reporter asking him. I don't know. The question is in the audio. I thought it was pretty funny, but here is Anthony Edwards.
Hey, you talked in that Phoenix series a lot about the way you saw Kevin and how that motivated you. And at your age, it's got to be fun to see all these OGs right in front of you. Is there anything like that in this series? Like, what's your...
Nah, these guys 3-4 years older than me, man. Yeah.
I mean, Jamal been around for a minute. Is that a guy that you've been tracking at all?
Nah, hell no. Like I said, what is he, 27?
So.
I'm finna turn 23, dog. Yeah. KD 36, 35. Right. Yeah. Come on, man. There's no disrespect to Jamal. I don't know what you're trying to start, but yeah, he's no, not at all.
And I guess the reporter is kind of on him. But I just love the way he just like, no, dog. I don't know what you're trying to start around here. But yeah, I think Anthony Edwards is kind of funny. I think he's kind of those naturally funny people. They didn't always try to be funny, but I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, he's just the one who doesn't play the game as well. Like he's not trying to answer the questions of are you looking forward to this? Yeah, we're playing a 2-time MVP, and Jamal Murray's very good.
Yes,
and he doesn't. We're both going to put our best effort out, and hopefully
the canned answers you usually get. He's like, hell no. Yeah, it's kind of refreshing. It's just refreshing.
This dude's like, we would have gone to high school together, man. I don't.
It's like, no, man, you know, OG.
He would have been a senior when I was a freshman. OG, man, come on, man.
Yeah, we're getting to know Anthony Edwards, man. The more I get to know him, the more I like him. I got to tell you that. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. Okay, I don't know if you watched the Tom Brady roast. Apparently, it was a success. I watched a lot of clips from it, so I feel like I don't need to watch the actual roast, even though I do have it in my queue for Netflix. I have it on there, but I don't. I'm not going to watch it. But apparently, it was really funny. And some of the clips I saw were really, really funny. And they did not pull any punches. It was a no holds barred kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought up the massage parlor with Robert Kraft. They brought up Tom Brady's wife banging other dudes. I mean, it was hardcore. They did not pull punches on that thing. So that actually may be why it's worth a watch. But apparently, this comes from page 6. It says those who watched the roast of Tom Brady live on Sunday night heard the audience erupt into boos when Kim Kardashian took the stage. However, Netflix has since edited out that reaction. They have deleted that negative reaction. They deleted the boos of the crowd when Kim Kardashian was introduced. So if you watched it live, you saw her get booed mercilessly. If you're watching like I'm going to watch it and rewatch it on the stream, that they took that out. Apparently, the streaming giant removed the awkward moment from the final 3-hour version of the show. In the original version, Kardashian was invited on stage by comedian Kevin Hart to give a special toast. However, after arriving at the podium to start her roast, the audience gave her just a wave of boos, apparently, that went on for like 30, 40 seconds. Just booed her mercilessly. And she's got some clout if she got Netflix to remove the booing. Like, why remove the booing for Kim Kardashian?
Because they booked it. You don't want to, like... whoever booked that she was supposed to come up looks like an idiot, so you remove the boo, so it looks like we did it. Hey, everything about this was received well.
Okay, so it's basically to cover somebody else's.
Yeah. No, you just
some publicist somewhere.
Yeah, no, and it's standard. It's standard stuff of we don't want boos on our stuff because then it looks like we did something bad or it wasn't good.
And her response is from her own personal PR firm. A source tells page 6 exclusive that Kim Kardashian had nothing to do with the audience's negative reaction being cut from the stream of the Tom Brady roast. She was just as surprised as everyone else when she went back and watched it. The insider adds the reality star handled it with such grace and even stayed to the very end of the taping.
How did she go back and watch it? There's no way that you walked on stage, got booed for a minute straight, and then we're like, how bad was it really? I'm not watching that.
Yeah. No, you're right. She probably did want to go back and see how bad it was.
I'm chalking that one up and walking away from it and be like, yeah, well, at least I'm not a cheater like Tom Brady and the Patriots, all sitting up on there laughing about all their wrongdoings.
Yeah, that's true. I would say this too. Kim Kardashian, and I don't know why America hates her so much, but America hates Kim Kardashian. At one point, her negative Q score, which is basically a favorability rating, how many Americans like you. That's your Q score. So her negative Q score, which is how many Americans hate you, actually was in the same like realm. It's in the same neighborhood as Bill Cosby. Like she was among the most. She was as hated, if not more hated, than Bill Cosby. After the rape allegations had surfaced, and after Bill Cosby had become, excommunicated from pop culture, she was still as hated. Which, man, she can't be that hated. I know y'all don't like her, but damn, we hate her that much.
No,
it's crazy.
People have fascination with making money doing nothing because everybody wants to make money doing nothing. That's what everybody wants, is to be rich and not work. But also everybody feels no matter how much they work, you may work 3 hours a week, and you're like, I work harder for those 3 hours than anyone has ever worked in their life. I'm the hardest working person for those 3 hours. Everyone feels they worked super hard to get where they're at.
That's true.
And everybody has fascinated. So everyone's fascinated with people who have no reason to be famous, yet they're also completely hate anyone who didn't work for what they got, or they feel didn't work for what they got.
I've always praised the Kardashian blueprint to be rich and famous without any real discernible talent. To actually have to present to the world is amazing. I can run fast, talk fast, and I still haven't been able to monetize my skills as much as the Kardashians have monetized theirs. And I think I may have more skills. Now, I ain't as fine as the Kardashians, so maybe they just have monetized their sexuality better than me. But I admire that, actually. I admire somebody being able to get rich and famous without a lot of skill. It gives me hope. I'm like, I only got a couple of them, and maybe one day I could do it too if I just market it the right way and promote it the right way, end up in the right situation, get a sex tape. Who knows? Like, think about it, dude. She's one of the first like celebrities to start in like an adult film situation and then go mainstream. Usually you go from being mainstream and then you end up,
She was the secondary
to go from porn to mainstream is almost impossible, and that's kind of what she's done.
And she was the secondary person in the sex tape at the time. Ray J was more famous than her.
Ray J was the reason that people wanted to watch the sex tape.
Who knows about Ray J other than he has affordable headphones that are on podcast advertised all the time? Other than that,
I want to say Ray J got a face tat recently. I would say Ray J is now falling off and he's got a face tat.
Oh no.
I think he fallen way up. He got a face tat the last time I saw it. So he's falling all the way off. Face tat, dude. And you ain't Mike Tyson face tat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, but you're right about that. That's even more so. She was actually the person. She was the supporting cast member. She was in that adult
but it
film.
wasn't even like, if it was Tom Hanks, I get it. That's a talented, loved man. But Ray J, you bounce off of Ray J into billions. That's impressive.
Pretty much. Exactly. Come on, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's impressive.
I don't know if it's impressive or a decrement of how awful American society can be at points.
Also, maybe true, but still, I mean, you can by this thing. She has shown us you can go from shame to fame and fame to fortune. Yeah. That is what you can do in America. Like, take the meet me outside. How about that chick? Remember that? Remember that chick? That chick's like a multi-millionaire now. Like, I'm not making it up.
Oh, what's her bad baby?
Bad baby or something. She gets paid thousands of dollars to show up at places. And she started out as the chick on, what was it? Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Catch Me Outside. How about that?
Lord.
You can turn shame into fame and fame into fortune.
Rob, we're doing the wrong thing. Waking up at doing it at 6 a.m. every day.
Exactly. We're the fools here, man. We're the fools.
Now, it may have something to do with that neither one of us are attractive young women, but that may also hurt.
That is fair. What does that say about society, though? Sex sales, man. Always has, always will. All right, there you go. Random conversation. We're coming back for the 9 o'clock. We'll hear from Stephen Jones. Speaking of turning shame into fame and fame into fortune, we will hear from Stephen Jones on the other side. I'll also have Rod's rant of the day. We'll talk about the NIL culture. And every university and program has got to have their own unique NIL culture and what best fits their particular circumstance and their particular team. And we'll talk about that because Brian Kelly is saying some of the quiet part out loud, and he's got LSU fans riled up. And there are a lot of coaches around the country that are now starting to at least promote their stance of what their NIL culture is. And I want to talk about that a little bit when we get back. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. My co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, always comes up with the musically themed days of the week, and that includes a new theme Thursday. And the new theme for this particular Thursday, of course, is a tribute to the moms out there. Mother's Day coming up this weekend, so it is a tribute to all the moms. So all the songs reference are dedicated to or a tribute to the moms out there. LL Cool J, Mama Said Knock You Out. Well done. Yeah. Well done. Yeah, I like it. I love it, actually.
Fits just perfectly in there.
It does. Yeah, it's not one that I would have, because I thought you were thinking like tributes and stuff, but you're right.
No, it's the 9 o'clock hour. We got to start. We're ramping up the day now,
I love it. I love it. That's good stuff. Yes, my man Patrick doing a great job with that. Also doing a great job with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is NBA related. Let the folks know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day. By the way, you can check it out at the Horn ATX account on the on X, actually, on the Horn ATX account on X.
Yes. Which NBA team has the best chance to come back and win their series? Mavericks back in the lead now with 48% of the vote online. Cavaliers still not getting a vote. I'm just surprised no one has belief in the Pacers. A lot more faith in the Nuggets than the Pacers on that online poll. But I would say the Pacers are up around with the Mavs. Like, those are my two top, and then the Nuggets are third just because of how bad they have looked in these two games. But that's I would say the Mavs and the Pacers, and the Mavs get a little bit more help because they're only down one game, so if they could turn it around. The Pacers have looked the closest to winning a game. Of all four, they have been the closest to winning both games. They have not been blown out. So they get an edge in that sense. And the Mavericks are only down one game. We know they can play better than they did, but this may be too much of a foe for them to overcome. We'll know more after tonight. But if they win tonight, then that's an easy question. Then it's the Mavs for sure. So we went with it today instead of after tonight. But if they go down 0-2, I think then to start looking, if they go down 0-2 and then tomorrow night the Nuggets go down, I mean, I think it could get bad real quick.
It could. I think the Nuggets, like I said, it's going to feel like a game 7. They'll be on the road, backs up against the wall. They've never been down 2-0 in a series like this since they've been champions. So I think that that's going to be a great game. How can it not be? Because the Timberwolves hadn't been here before, so they're going to be so hyped up and so jacked up because they got a chance to essentially put their foot on the throat of the defending champions. And think about that point, that young team like that, they're almost trying to prove it to themselves that they are good enough. They, like, we think we're good enough.
Yeah.
But damn, if we do that to Denver, man, then we actually will start to believe. And that's a powerful force on a team. Look at Texas, when Texas did it to Bama. When you are talking about it amongst yourselves and everybody's working and grinding toward that one goal, that's one thing. But then when you actually have proof, evidence, yeah, we are that good. It's that can really change the entire, like, just to me, entire course of a team. Like, it can change their identity. Really, it really can, because, like I said, this Minnesota team, they believed, but they didn't have proof of it. Now they're starting to have proof that they are that good.
Yeah,
that's scary.
That's you buy more in, like with Chris Finch's preaching. Get that intensity and that energy and that defense. You maybe not fully bought in, but you get a couple wins on the road in Denver against the defending champs, and all of a sudden that buy-in just goes out, and everything he asks you to do, okay, go do it.
Yep, exactly. Now everybody's hanging out at the facility longer, watching film. Everybody's dedicated that much more than they were before. They're doubling down on dedication now. If they're with Minnesota. That's a scary thought with a young team. All right, good stuff there. Let's get to the Horn headlines, and then we'll hear from Stephen Jones, of course. We'll talk a little Dallas Cowboys here. Raj ran the day. We'll talk NIL culture across the country. Everybody's got a different NIL culture, whatever suits them and their situation. We'll talk about that and hear from Brian Kelly in regards to that. And also, we're going to talk about Jokic's legacy. We talked about him winning his third MVP earlier in the show. I want to talk about it again. Nice little factoid that I saw about Jokic, and it makes his third MVP even more impressive and the championship more impressive. Yeah. So I'll share that with my man Patrick, and we'll discuss that. That's later on. But right now, let's get informed. Let's get educated. Let's get updated on the top headlines of the day with the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Number 1 ranked Texas softball begins their postseason with a matchup against Texas Tech in the second round of the Big 12 tournament today. Texas beat the Red Raiders by run rule in all 3 of their final games of the season. After winning their first regular season conference title since 2010, the Longhorns are now seeking their first sweep of the Big 12 titles since 2003. In the NBA, the Knicks have come up clutch in the fourth quarter again to top the Pacers 130-121. The Knicks, who have already dealt with a rash of injuries, had more bad news with OG Anunoby leaving the game with a hamstring injury and Jalen Brunson missing a chunk of the first half, dealing with a foot injury before returning to score 24 in the second half. Tonight, the Cavaliers will look for an answer to the Celtics, and the Mavericks try to steal one in OKC. In other NBA news, Nikola Jokic was named the NBA MVP, winning his third MVP award, becoming the ninth player in NBA history to do so. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic also received first-place votes. In Major League Baseball, the Astros dropped their sixth straight game to the Yankees 9-4 and will try to salvage a game with Roniel Blanco on the mound, who is 3-0 so far this season. And the Rangers bounced back after losing the first game of their doubleheader to the A's yesterday to get a hard-fought 12-11 win to win this in the second game to win the series. They will now have a day off before heading to Colorado to face the Rockies. And that is your Horn Headlines.
I thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. We appreciate those as always. All right, let's get right to the Stephen Jones sound. He was on Mad Dog Radio with Adam Sheen and talking about Dak's contract situation. He was asked about Dak overall as a player. And here is what – there's another – I think that now there's another very – quotable line that Cowboys fans are probably going to be haunted with that Stephen Jones drops at the end of this response. But here is Stephen Jones talking about the contract situation with Dak Prescott and how the Cowboys feel like they're close. They're close. They're close to this thing.
If I'm a Cowboys fan listening to this and we hear the commentary on the contract, do the Cowboys believe that Dak Prescott is the right guy to get over the hump and finally deliver that championship to the suffering fans of the Dallas Cowboys?
Absolutely. I mean, I totally think Dak can lead us to a championship. He does everything the right way. He's certainly the leader of this football team. He keeps, everybody motivated in the off season. He's got everybody working out and doing all the things that it takes to put in the work to give yourself every opportunity to win a championship. It just so happens that sometimes that old oblong football doesn't bounce your way, and we've had some tough breaks and tough games there in the postseason, but we've won 12 games 3 years in a row. I think that's right at the top in terms of what teams have done over a 3-year period. And, we're hanging around the rim. We've just got to go up there and grab it, to use a basketball term, and dunk it in. And we're hanging around the rim. We just got to get the job done.
Oh, yeah, I know. The toilets have rims too. We've heard the hanging around the rim thing. But he is right, though. And it's almost, at this point, it feels like almost a curse for the Cowboys that they are good in the regular season. They have, this is something that, and I was bringing this up after the Cowboys' last loss, and these sound like, or these things, they seem like they'd be compliments for the Cowboys and things that'd be positive. But Cowboys fans, with the lack of postseason success, these things almost feel like they are, Cowboys are being mocked with these superlatives, right? The Cowboys had the highest number of all pros in the NFL last season, more than the 49ers, more than the Ravens, more than the Chiefs. They had 9 of them. They had 2 more actually than everybody else in the league. 2 more. So in terms of talent, you're talking about one of the more talented teams in all of football. The problem with the Cowboys' talent is that the talent doesn't always show up on the biggest stage in the postseason. Take Michael Parsons, for instance. Michael Parsons is on his way to being a Hall of Fame pass rusher. He's got one of the greatest starts to a career in the history of the NFL for edge rusher. I mean, it's like him and like Reggie White. And like in terms of the starts their careers, it's that good. But in the playoffs, he's got 4 playoff games, 1 sack. Last season against Green Bay, in the postseason against Green Bay in that game, he had 1 quarterback pressure on 19 pass rushes, the lowest pressure rate in any game in his career. Guys, last year he led the NFL in pressure rate. And in the 1 playoff game they played, he had the lowest pressure rate of his career, 5% pressure rate against the Green Bay Packers. right? That guy who's the best player on your team, arguably, and supposedly arguably one of the best defenders in the league, which I agree he is, he's got to be better in big games like that in the postseason. And same thing for Dak. I love Dak. I'm a big Dak fan. But you don't get big Dak energy in the playoffs. You get small Dak energy. And Dak is now 2-5 is his playoff career. That's his playoff career record. He's tied for the lowest postseason QB win percentage in the Super Bowl era. And I like Dak. But Dak, and by the way, I'm a Romo-sexual. But there is no denying, even during the Romo days, the Cowboys 0-7 mark in the divisional round since they last won a Super Bowl. 0-7. The Cowboys are the first team to win 12 games in 3 straight seasons and failed to make the conference championship in any of them. It's never happened. So if you think to yourself, man, this seems like almost the Cowboys are cursed. You're right. This has never happened. You've never seen a team this successful in the regular season and then have this bad of a showing in the playoffs. You don't see that. The Cowboys are the first team since the 2019 Ravens to win 70% of their games and lose their playoff game by 16 plus points. So it's, to me, it's not just a Dak problem. This is an organizational issue with the Cowboys, and it's multifactorial, and a lot of it is part of what Stephen Jones brought up there too. I do believe that the Cowboys, I think they mismanage a lot of things, and ultimately that those things come back to haunt them. Bad organizational habits overall. One of them being their lack of drafting quarterbacks, drafting the fewest amount of quarterbacks in the NFL since 2000. Things like that don't seem big at the time because they're lucky and they found Dak, which was a happy accident for them. Got Tony Romo, an undrafted free agent, to become a franchise quarterback. And when you kind of, have luck and hope as a strategy, which ends up working out in your favor, sometimes it distorts your ability to be able to predict and anticipate long-term issues that are going to affect your organization. And there's no doubt there are some long-term issues affecting the Dallas Cowboys. This is why they can't break through.
Yeah,
we haven't seen teams be this good and not be able to break through, is my point.
Yeah, and I mean, normally it's either you improve or you try and find a new solution, and they just don't really try and find a new solution. They've just been kind of just beating their head against the wall the same way over and over and over again. And okay, well, we need a second receiver. We'll wait 2 years and then we'll get a second receiver. And they get Brandon Cooks. You go, okay, great. You have your 2 wide receivers. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got Brandon Cooks. But now you got these other problems. You can't wait to fix everything. You have to fix it in the moment, or else there will be a new problem and you're fixing it. If you've got a leak and you wait until you've got another leak, you still have a leak. And that's just what the Cowboys continue to do. And so that's why they stick around that same range. And it's frustrating because they're not a normal team. It's a 9-10 win team that you really look at and say, okay, they're mediocre and they're in that hellish mediocre where they never get a good draft pick, but they're never really a playoff contender either. They are a good team. They're winning divisions. They're doing very well in the regular season. It just doesn't mean anything in the playoffs. And for every Cowboys fan I talk to, none of that matters anymore. It only matters about playoff success. So they can't even get that excited during the regular season because every win is followed by, well, we're still going to blow it. And it's like, that's a bad way to go through being a fan. And so you just want to see them try and make a move. I get there's not a lot they can do but at some point you have to make a decision to either say, this is the future, we're re-signing our guys so we have a little bit of cap room and we can know what our future is going to be, or we're not. And this is it. We're going for the Super Bowl, but we're getting rid. Micah Parsons on his 5th year. He's not getting a contract until that. We're going to trade him off if we don't win. CeeDee Lamb, we're going to re-sign him, but get him a team-friendly enough deal where it's backloaded and it's loaded to where we're not going to pay a ton of dead cap space if we do move him off. There's not no trade clause, and we'll let Dak walk. We're fine with that. But I think you have to make the move of re-signing CeeDee Lamb. You have to basically set your sight on what you're actually going to do. And maybe they know better than we do. Maybe they do have a plan. And if we see a CD deal get done and not a Micah and not a Dak, I think that's where you're headed. It's Super Bowl or bust. But their history would show that they'll back off of that the last minute and re-sign Dak and re-sign Micah and then say the same stuff again next season. That's the track record, and that's why you worry about it.
Yeah, you said you'd be surprised if they did actually decide to change course and blow it up and start over. That's not what the Cowboys have done. Traditionally, they've stayed on this or a safer path, if you will. But on that safer path, they still haven't learned from their mistakes. Like, take the running back position. Matter of fact, can we play this cut of him being asked about running back? You've complained about running back over and over again. You talked about the Zeke, how signing Zeke for them has almost handicapped their ability to add to the running back room, because now they're like, well, we added Zeke, and that might be enough. Well, here's Adam Sheen when he asked Stephen Jones about, hey, why didn't you think about Derrick Henry? Because this is a guy that wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. Here is Stephen Jones talking to Adam Sheen about why the Cowboys haven't brought in more reinforcements at the running back position.
I did the interview with Derrick Henry, and he's got the house in Dallas, and he said, and he loves being on the Ravens, but he wanted that call from the Cowboys and was interested in going to Dallas and talking through it. So take us through that process, and why was there no telephone call to Derrick Henry? Were you guys not interested? What was the evaluation on the player? Why no telephone call to Derrick Henry?
Well, first of all, nothing but respect for Derrick Henry. I mean, he's one of the top backs in this league. He's had one of the great careers in this league. I wish him nothing but the best with the Ravens. Sure, a great place for him. Our situation is just, and no one ever wants to say it, but it's salary cap. And we just didn't, have the money to allocate to that position, in terms of where we were from a cap standpoint, knowing what we're looking at with Dak and certainly Micah and CD Lamb. We just didn't have those type of resources to allocate that position, or we probably would have already had it filled with Tony Pollard. We hated to lose Tony Pollard. We had to lose Zeke the year before from a cap standpoint, and we just didn't have the dollars to allocate to the running back position, and certainly looking to do it, in a more efficient way in terms of how it complements the rest of our offensive roster.
And it almost talks like the only way for them to fill the hole on their roster at the running back position was to sign someone out of free agency. They could have drafted a running back the last 2 years. They did not draft one. That's a cost-effective way to do it, and Cowboys love building through the draft, by the way. Or they could have traded for a running back. They've traded for players recently. Traded for Brandon Cooks, as you brought up earlier. At the cornerback position, Stephon Gilmore traded for him. So they've traded for guys recently at positions of need. So they could have traded for a running back. Still can trade for a running back if they need to. So it just he almost stated it the way he stated it. I almost felt like there was only one option to fill the running back spot or to fill that void. And that's just not true. They just don't exhaust every possibility. And the Cowboys have miscalculated the running back market, which they did with Zeke. They mismanaged the running back market, which I think they did with Pollard, because they thought he would come back and be just as good after the injury. And that was just not the case. And we all, I think, believe that, hey, it's going to take a little bit longer for him to hit his stride and for him to get back to his peak. And the Cowboys, the way they played him and the way that they basically situated and built and constructed the running back room with him as the lead back, for him to be the workhorse back, just didn't make sense, because he couldn't do it when he was completely healthy, or at least hadn't done it when he was completely healthy. Yeah. What would have made you think that he was going to do it post-injury? That was, to me, mismanagement of the position. And now just mishandling the whole damn thing.
No, I mean, and that statement too, we would have liked to keep Tony Pollard. I agree. If you could have kept Tony for the price, he was probably not the best guy to keep at that point. I think Tennessee overpaid for him a little bit, because I don't know if he's a lead back. And, for the Cowboys, I get you couldn't do that. But to say we had to get rid of Zeke because of cap, you didn't have to get rid of Zeke because of cap. You had to get rid of Zeke because he wasn't a starting running back in the NFL anymore. That's why you had to get rid of Zeke. And you brought him back a year later when he's still not a starting running back in the NFL. And that's the problem, is you can't just keep saying, well, this guy has a name. You can go bring back Emmitt Smith. He's got a name. He ain't going to be a starting running back for you. He's not going to average 4 yards a carry. And you need a guy who can average 4 yards a carry that you can put into a game and feel that this guy can pick you up a first down. And I don't know if you have that guy on your roster right now.
I don't
And
think
so if you don't have that guy and you're not actively out and saying, well, we'll give up a fourth next year because we're all in and we're going for bust on this. We'll trade for a young running back. We'll call the Texans and give them a fifth where they drafted Damian Harris or Damian what's his name? I can't think it was the running back name from Texans now.
Oh, Pierce.
David Pierce. We'll trade you. I think they draft him in the 4th round. We'll give you a 5th or a 6th, and the Texans can walk out of that and say, well, we missed on him, or he doesn't fit our scheme anymore. We get a 5th for him, and the Cowboys get a running back who can start and has a lot more potential, and he's on a rookie deal. Like you don't have to trade for the biggest name. You don't need to bring in Saquon Barkley, but you can't bring in somebody that we've seen no trend that they're ever going to be a real RB1 in the league and tell me that that's supposed to be your RB1 versus bringing in somebody young and trading a draft pick to go get a young guy who's not going to really play on a roster and bringing them in and say, maybe this guy could be an RB1. Because at least then you're trying to aim for the future. You're trying to fix a hole as opposed to, well, if we can't get Saquon, then why are we even trying? We can't get Derrick Henry. Why are we even trying? We'll just get Zeke.
Upgrading.
We'll just get Jonathan Brooks. He went before us in the draft. We told everyone that he was the best running back that we've ever seen in the history of running backs. He's our favorite player we've ever seen. And then surprisingly, he got drafted before us. So I guess it's Zeke time.
No, the fact that they thought Zeke was the best option available instead of trading for a running back, which we both threw out there before the draft, is ridiculous. And they still can, by the way. They still can go out there. But I think they're hoping – that hope is not a strategy. They're hoping at the end of training camp when everybody cuts the rosters down to their 53-man rosters that teams will cut running backs and then quality running backs will be available. And I was like, yeah, that is a possibility, but why would you count on that? Because that's still an option that may not necessarily provide you with an upgrade at that position.
Like,
because you want what other teams don't want.
Yeah. So like, are you hoping that it's Khalil Herbert?
I think, yeah, but that's hope.
And that's your best is like a Khalil Herbert would probably be your best, like a guy like that who's on a roster where they signed a free agent running back. They have Roshan Johnson, who's going to be on a rookie deal longer. He's only got 1 year left on his deal, I believe, in Herbert. Maybe a guy like that you could say we
trade for him then. And so you don't have to worry about.
I agree. And you don't have to worry about then trying to get him to show up to you in free agency when he's going to want a contract. And you don't want to give him any long-term. You want to give him a 1 year deal because everybody's on a 1 year deal. Earn it. It's mind-boggling that their response to it every time is, well, we don't have the cap room. And you're like, that, then tell me you're not going for a Super Bowl. You can't tell me that there's a major position. And I get the position is devalued, but that doesn't mean you don't need one.
And everybody's got to deal with the cap.
And we can, and even look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs, when they didn't have it, they didn't win the Super Bowl, and now they've got Pacheco, and they're winning Super Bowls again.
And where they get Pacheco in the 6th, 7th round or something like that?
Because they just drafted a running back, and they put him into a system, and it worked. But they drafted a guy. But it was when they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it wasn't quite enough, and they needed another piece, and they got Pacheco, and it was another piece. And all of a sudden, it's not like he's a huge dividend, but it's better than, well, we don't have a run game, so the defense can game plan for us. It's the same thing that happened on the other side of the ball with Dan Quinn at points, where they said, we know what Micah Parsons is going to do, and until you fix the other places, we know what we can do and just run right at Micah Parsons. And that's what the Packers did, and it cost you a playoff game.
Yeah, I have no idea what the Cowboys are doing this offseason, but I don't think they got better. I'll say that. Yeah. And last year, they technically regressed because last season they didn't make it to the divisional round. They got lost. They got bumped off in the first round of the playoffs, so you can argue the Cowboys are getting even worse. The Cowboys are the only team. I'll end it on this, and we'll go to break. They are the only franchise with 2 quarterbacks to play in 3 or more divisional round games without winning one. That's Dak. And that's Romo. Isn't that crazy? All right, we come back. We'll get into the NIL culture. Every school's got to have their own NIL culture, their own individual one. Brian Kelly said the quiet part out loud in trying to establish LSUs. We'll talk about Texas and some of the other coaches around the country who have made open public statements about their own NIL culture that they're trying to establish. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. We all love living in the city of Austin, and if you're a homeowner in the city of Austin, even better because you own some of the most valuable real estate in America. The only downside of that is that property taxes are also some of the highest in the state. And right now, many of my fellow Austinites, like you listening right now, are overpaying on your property taxes. Don't worry, I was overpaying on my property taxes as well until I found OwnWell. OwnWell can help you protest unfair property taxes and save hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars on your property taxes. OwnWell believes that when it comes to paying property tax, you should only pay what's fair. And it'll only take you less than 3 minutes to sign up for OwnWell right now, and OwnWell will save you money or it's free. That's a guarantee. There are no upfront fees or costs. If you don't save, you don't pay. But 86% of OwnWell's customers actually save on their property taxes. OwnWell handles everything from start to finish by also offering you local tax experts backed by cutting-edge technology and the best in-class customer support available. So save money on your property taxes with OwnWell. Sign up in less than 3 minutes and start your protest today. And folks, you know, in Travis County, you have until the 15th of May to protest your property taxes. And right now with OwnWell, they are the perfect place for you to do it. They'll sign up. The sign up will take you less than 3 minutes. No upfront fees or costs. Start your protest today at ownwell.com. That's OWNWELL.com. Ownwell.com. All right, time for a Raj round of the day. I want to get to some Brian Kelly sound. Brian Kelly actually got a lot of LSU fans, excuse me, got them riled up. Maybe some Longhorn fans too, but got the LSU fans riled up when he was talking about NIL, and I believe this was in response to him talking about defensive linemen. Remember the rumor? I brought this up because Jeff Ketchum referred to it via Twitter when Dominique Williams committed to Oklahoma, that the rumors were that he wanted, 7-figure NIL deal, or at least NIL opportunities that would add up to 7 figures. And also, that was something that maybe he was asking for from other universities too. So there's talk. I saw this on a 104.5 was the name of these 104.5 is the sports talk station in Baton Rouge, that they referred to this very same rumor, and they said, referring to Dominique Williams' recruitment at LSU, because Bo Davis was there, that they heard also 7 figures was the number that he was seeking in NIL compensation. So I believe it was along those lines, talking about LSU trying to get defensive line help. And then how much NIL played a part in that. So here is Brian Kelly talking about the NIL culture now that they're trying to establish at LSU.
So the D line, interior D lineman, where are you right now with that?
Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because, we're selling something a little bit differently. And that is, we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players. And unfortunately, right now, that's what some guys are looking for. They want to be bought. And look, I understand NIL is part of this, and we have an incredible collective. We have very, very generous opportunities around the greater Baton Rouge area for NIL opportunities. So they are here. But we're not going to go out and buy players. That's not what this is about. This was never about that. We will develop you. We will get you ready for the next step, as we did with Jaden Daniels, as we did with Malik Neighbors, as we did with Brian Thomas. We developed 3 defensive linemen that all got drafted this year, and we'll do that again. But if you're just looking to get paid, you're looking in the wrong place. If you'd like all the things that we do here in developing our players, bringing you into a championship program, playing in front of the best fan base in America, playing for championships, and having an opportunity for NIL, you should be a Tiger. But if you just want to get, paid, this is not the place for you.
All right. Now, it's interesting because he says, and I think he may have phrased it the wrong way, but he wants to give guys NIL opportunities. I think what they're just saying is they're not going to be the highest bidder every damn time. They're not going to be, negotiating with players who are basically negotiating with the free market and have them in a bidding war against other programs for players. I think that's what he's trying to avoid. Honestly, I think Texas is trying to avoid that too. I think a lot of programs are trying to avoid just the straight up bidding war for players, where a player comes in, gives you a dollar figure, and then you got to match that, or their representative gives you a dollar figure. You got to match that, or you got to do better. I think they're trying to get away from that. I think they're saying, hey, these are kind of flat rates basically for positions. And we know that because remember Ryan Day, he told a group of Ohio State constituents and boosters and donors that he needed $13 million to keep their roster elite. And it cost him about $1 to $2 million to get the best quarterbacks. And it cost you about $1 million to get the top tackles and the top edge rushers. He said it. And then Matt Rule backed it up. Matt Rule said, yeah, the top quarterbacks are going for $1 to $2 million. And then I believe the statement was he said a good quarterback in the portal costs $1.5 to $2 million. And he said, let's make sure we all understand what's happening. There are some teams that have $6 to $7 million players playing for them right now in their roster. And I think they're just trying to get away from that, because essentially these NIL resources are working as a salary cap for you. Your NIL resources, your NIL ceiling, that will determine how much money you can spend on building and constructing this roster. And I'll throw this out there. Brian Kelly's not the only one trying to establish his own unique NIL culture. I saw this story this morning from a coach, yes, the Boise State coach, Spencer Danielson. He tried to lay down the law, and the law blew up in his face a little bit. But he said earlier this week that it was going to be policy of the Boise State program to not allow freshmen or newcomers to make NIL money during their first year in the program, because he wants them to have to earn it. He quickly clarified, at least the program quickly clarified, that Danielson wasn't putting a strict embargo in place on freshmen earning NIL deals, but that the program would not be promising or offering NIL deals to recruits or first-year players, because I think it's actually against antitrust laws for you to say you can't earn. That's what this whole lawsuit is about in Virginia. That you can't, that you are not allowed to earn money off your name, image, like this until you do this. That's why they say, well, until I'm a student athlete. What you mean? Until I sign a letter of intent, a national letter of intent? They're like, no, that shouldn't be the case. You should be able to make money off your name, image, like this from the time you're born. That's the American way. That's capitalism. That's these lawsuits are about. So essentially, his statement could have been perceived as a violation of antitrust laws. So that's why they came out and clarified, like, no, that's just our policy. But if you really want to do it, you can do it. Because they don't want to be, obviously that program. And there's another quote that I have from a coach from Hugh Freeze. He was asked about recruiting quarterbacks, and hey, why don't you just pay top dollar to go get you a great quarterback in the transfer portal? He said, quote, the options that you're presented with, these are guys on this roster, develop Peyton, Holden, develop Hank, develop Walker, or go spend $1 million on this guy. I just couldn't bring myself to doing that because I wanted to put all the pieces together. So he's saying too, cost me $1 million to go get a quarterback. How much you think Quentin Ewers got? Probably $1 million twice. Got it from Ohio State, probably got it from Texas too. So that's what you're doing. And some of these coaches saying, well, I don't want to get in bidding wars. I will just have a certain amount allocated for this position, for this player, but I don't want to get in negotiation bidding wars. And I think down in LSU, just my theory, I think that Dominique Williams recruitment and the rumors, and maybe the rumors were true, maybe they weren't, that LSU probably got that same number and were like, well, we're not doing that. No player is going to get paid that kind of money. You'd be the highest paid player on our roster potentially via NIL, and we don't want that. So it's about establishing your culture. Texas is in a unique position, and I think Sark does a good job. I've always stated, kind of referencing the old JFK quote, right? It's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You want players in your roster that come to play for Texas, not at Texas. The at Texas guys, they want to know what the program can do for them. How many NIL dollars can I get? How many deals can I get? What's the networks you can hook me up with? What are all the perks of this gig? And give me some ACO tickets. Give me some South by Southwest tickets. The guys who come to play for Texas, your Rojos, your Jay Witts, those are the guys who want to know what they can do for the program. How can I help the program? What can I do for the program? How can I better improve the status of the program while I'm here? I want to leave it better than I found it kind of guys. And I think Sark's got more of the for guys than the at guys right now on the roster. And that's really the key, because as soon as you got more at guys and for guys, you're going to be in trouble. So there you go. I think everybody's struggling with their own NIL culture because nobody wants to be just making it rain money on recruits, because even if you have the money, that's a bad way to build a team.
No, and I think
bad way to build a team.
I think you can also see a little bit of what's happening in the NFL happening now to college, and they don't like it either, is that the defensive tackle is becoming a premium position. So we saw it with Walter Nolan as well. We heard the rumors about that he wanted to get paid, and these really good D tackles are now asking to get paid, and they go, we have a cap, and like, we have these positions sorted out, and you guys make this much. They go, nope, new rules. We make what the edges make now.
That's a great point, Patrick. I've been on the premium bandwagon for a while, but you're right. There have been a couple of D tackles that have basically tried to shift the market, try to reset the market almost for these teams. And you're right, the teams, they definitely have already set up, all right, quarterback's going to make this. You just heard it from Matt Rule and Ryan Day. And now you got D tackle, like, hold on, D tackle makes as much as my quarterback now? Whoa, man. You're throwing it off. So great point there. I totally agree with you. I totally agree that's happening, and good for the D tackles. Good for you guys. Get your money while you can. Somebody will pay it. Somebody will pay it.
Hey, Walter Nolan's at Ole Miss and Oklahoma. So They look. Some bank's gonna give you that loan.
Exactly. Somebody's gonna pay it, even if somebody don't. I like that. That's a good point there, Patrick. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Austin is a great city, one of the best cities in the country, and that's why more people keep moving here and making the traffic a little bit worse, but that's okay, because as the city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks we love in this city were created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 482 don't go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or you want a refreshing career change, you can become a member of Ironworkers Local 482. Right now, they're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. Go online and apply today at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. Welcome back to the Rodcast. My co-host and teammate, Patrick Davis, the Ideallionaire, comes up with our musically themed days of the week, and Thursdays is a new theme Thursday, and the new theme for this Thursday is a shout-out and a tribute to all the mothers out there. So every song references or is dedicated or a tribute to the mothers out there. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the world. All right, before we get out of here, we always play Who Said That? And that is when Patrick plays a little bit of audio, and based on the familiarity or you being able to recall some of the context clues that are involved, based on any of the clues, you're supposed to be able to diagnose and identify who said that in the clip. So who said that?
Okay, and if he's honest about that, he's 100% getting suspended. I was trying to throw the heat back at Mark Davis.
I don't think it's 100%. It's something less than 100%.
By the way, other night he was 3 for 18. I'm not shocked he missed Mark Davis with the heat.
Can we just state for the record?
Who said that? That was Tim Legler and Brian Windhorst. I believe I heard him as well, taking a shot at Jamal Murray. He was 3 of 18. So I'm not shocked.
Talking about throwing the heating pad on the court, and he said,
Twice,
I threw that at Mark Davis, and he goes, yeah, if he's true and he did throw it, I'm not surprised he missed it because he was 3 of 18 on the night.
And you said he did miss.
No. So he didn't even get on the court, and the second time he got it on the court.
So he actually did miss it. He couldn't.
Yes,
he was struggling.
He was struggling. Yeah, he did finally come out and say he was in the wrong. I don't know if he fully, but he said I was in the wrong. It's time to move on. I got to be better than that. Blah blah blah. So he's like, but yeah, he's like, there's not much to say. I think he didn't really want to fully go into. I'm a giant idiot. That was dumb. So he's just, we're moving on. We watched film and we got seen some things, and it's time to move on.
There's no way to justify a temper tantrum especially when you're an adult. And he basically was having one out there on the court. Okay, random fact what I promised you about Nikola Jokic and his 3rd MVP. How about this? Jokic, this comes from Tom Haberstroh. Nikola Jokic is the first MVP, or at least since 1984. He's the first MVP since then to have 0 teammates who have won any awards of any kind, all-star, all NBA, or all defense. I mean, he didn't have one teammate that has gotten an accolade or
Jamal Murray's not even been an all-star before.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, so that makes him unique. Like, basically, that's very rare for MVPs. The average MVP has had 14 teammate awards at this point in their career. Jokic had 0. Yeah. That is a crazy factoid, man. That makes him unique in that aspect. All right. Thank you to my man, Patrick. You're doing a great job as always. Thank you to you guys for listening. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until tomorrow, same time, same channel. Peace and hook 'em.